Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Thursday midday birthday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with the man himself, Russell Dobular. I don't know if you want to reveal your age. I guess you can, if you want.
As Joey's father used to say, 35 again.
35 again. That's right.
That's exactly how he said it. 56.
56. Russell Dobular, 56 trip around the sun starts today with all of you. So thanks, everybody, very much for being here. We already see some birthday love in the chat for Russ. You know, we always say shower him with the gift of money. That's what we say. Yes, that's very important. So thanks, everybody, for doing that. We'll take some super chats to start things off since you got some birthday chats in. I think that's only fair. Natalie Williams says, happy birthday, Russell, over on YouTube, as does Jay Tolbert. Happy birthday, brother Russell. There you go.
Thank you.
The party emojis are going on and on. We also have one from JC. Says, Brianna had Greenwald on and asked what's up with Taibbi lately. He gave a very long, coy type of wait-and-see answer. Just wondering if you guys had seen this. I hadn't. You know, look.
Really?
I hadn't seen that. You know, look, when it comes to Taibbi, I'm sure he'll have something to say about the next genocide. You know, you can't expect someone to speak out against every single genocide, you know. I'm sure he'll get the next one.
No, actually, he got that on Rwanda.
Next one around. Exactly. So, there you go. All right, let's move right on in. So we got a lot to cover today. So let's hop right on into this. Okay, we got like I said, a lot to do. We got Rumble Rants coming in here. Thanks everybody for being here. 651 strong in the YouTube chat, 304 strong over on Rumble. Appreciate that very much, folks. All right, so it's been the case, you know, last couple shows we've had to put together short segments with late-breaking developments, which is what this is here. So first one of these, huge, says DC Drano. Trump tells the Department of Commerce to redo the census and remove illegal aliens from it. Huge, huge, huge. So Donald Trump put out on Truth Social, I have instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern-day facts and figures, and importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024. Why that would matter, I don't know. People who are in our country illegally would not be counted in the census. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So Donald Trump now ordering a new census, I guess in advance of the midterms, although that will be next to impossible to get together in time for the midterms, since not only does it take quite a while to do a census, but almost all the time, especially in this case, it would face numerous court challenges. So the idea that there's going to be a newly drawn House map by November of 2026 is virtual fantasy. I mean, I won't say impossible since I put nothing past this crew, but very, very difficult to pull off. That didn't stop Stephen Miller from salivating over the idea on Fox News last night, apparently.
York, Massachusetts. Democrats have gerrymandered the vote beyond recognition to try to maintain their advantage in the House elections. On top of that, let's not forget, Democrats rigged the 2020 census by including illegal aliens. Remember, they sued Donald Trump. They sued the administration. They fought tooth and nail to include illegal aliens in the census. 20 to 30 of House Democrat seats wouldn't exist but for illegal aliens. Texas is taking just a small corrective step against this ocean of fraud, this ocean of abuse by the corrupt Democrat Party, Sean.
This point, I think, is worth making.
Isn't Stephen Miller the grandchild of literal refugees?
Yes,
Jewish
exactly.
refugees who fled here?
Yeah, his own uncle, I think, called him out for that. Was that his uncle, I think? Something like that?
I think that was his uncle, yeah. If you had shown his grandparents this video in a crystal ball, they probably would have turned around and gone back.
Yeah. So Skylar Johnson tweets, "This is unconstitutional. A president cannot unilaterally order the redoing of a census. That power rests in Congress, and Congress has actually delegated that power to the Census Bureau." So like I said, the odds of this coming together in time for the midterms seem very, very slim. But wait until they realize that the first states to lose seats in a census without undocumented immigrants will be Texas and Florida. Yeah, this is the other thing. What's likely to happen if you were to take illegal immigrants out of the census is you would have large population states lose seats and small population seats gain seats as a proportion, which overall would tend to benefit Republicans, since a lot of the more sparsely populated states are the red ones. Not at all cases. You obviously have states like Vermont and Maine, which tend to vote Democrat, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, right? We can go down the list, and I could be here all day. But if you look at the top 4 populated states, Texas, California, New York, and Florida, not in that order, 2 of them are blue states, and 2 of them are red states, which means those 4 states would be likely to lose seats. So the idea that this would greatly benefit Republicans, that 20 or 30 Democrat seats would be legislated out of existence, is not the case. So I don't really understand what the play is here. It seems like a pretty incoherent move in the sense that it's not guaranteed to help Republicans. It could help Republicans in the Electoral College in 2028. So maybe that's what he's thinking, because if California loses a bunch of seats in Congress, then they lose electoral votes.
But
again,
as you say, so will Texas and
then
Florida.
Again, yes, so will Texas and Florida. So even there, it's not exactly clear how the math will work out. But this is happening amidst the Texas redistricting fight. And remember, we talked about Ron DeSantis wanting to recount the census because he thinks Florida's undercounted. Well, you have a lot of undocumented immigrants in Florida, obviously. Same in Texas. So It's not even clear who this would benefit. But it seems clear that Donald Trump feels it would benefit the Republican Party. Again, because of all of the hurdles and because of the amount of time it takes to do one of these things, I find it almost impossible that this would affect the midterms. It could potentially affect the electoral vote counts for each state going into 2028, which could potentially give the Republicans an advantage there. But that was the big news this morning, is that he's trying to pull the trigger on redoing the census, which is something he talked about and tried to do in 2020. So now he's going to give it one more shot.
Yeah, this is very much a reflection of how we just don't have any leaders who are working for the people that elect them. With the Democrats, the knock is that they're obsessed with the norms and the guardrails, and they hide behind those in order to protect themselves from accusations of not serving their voters. The parliamentarian was a classic Democrat Party excuse for not doing anything. This is the other extreme. What norms? What guardrails? Which, you know what, would be fine if that's what you were doing in order to, say, provide more health care, right? Fine. Although there are always questions when you undermine institutional protections or dismantle them. How is that going to be used by people whose views you don't like? But okay, man, I think we'd be willing to cross that bridge when we came to it if that's what you were ignoring norms in favor of.
Right.
This is just, hey, man, we want more seats. We think this is going to benefit us electorally. Fuck the norms and guardrails.
Right.
It's just the absolute opposite extreme, and it's just as self-serving in another direction.
Yes. You might even say more, in the sense that their goal here is to just rig it. I mean, that is their goal.
Sure.
Now, Democrats do this when they have the power to. I'm not saying it's only Republicans who do this, but the act of redrawing the map in your favor at the 11th hour, Yeah, that is an abuse of power. It's not unique to the Republican Party, but in this context, in this moment, yeah, they're the ones who opened this can of worms, and it's going to be up to the Democrats to retaliate if they do this Texas redistricting. Like I said, when you do this, it is because you're operating from a position of weakness. Even a move like this, which seems like, well, if you could redraw the maps in your favor, why not do it? Because you take a lot of incumbents out of their districts and you pit incumbents against each other. That's throwing the ball 50 yards over the middle of the field. There's a lot that can go wrong when you do that. You do that when you feel you have to because you're losing. And now in poll after poll after poll, you see Democrats opening up a pretty significant lead in the generic ballot, which is why now the Republican strategy going into these midterms is to flip the board.
And you watch Stephen Miller. I've said this about the women that Trump appoints, that they're largely appointed for their ability to project grievance and moral high dudgeon. It's true of the men too. And the real hypocrisy of that is a big part of the whole, new right aesthetic is we're in the Western tradition of real men. Facts don't care about your feelings. Look at these libs having a meltdown.
Right.
Look at them. Everything is about their feelings. Everything is about your feelings, motherfucker. You act exactly the same. Exactly the same. Look at Bat-Yager Sargon. Is she any better than any blue hair you would see on TikTok? This is the Is she any different from any of these nose ring people that you've been mocking for years? Stephen Miller there. Oh, the outrage. That's their whole thing. Like everyone Trump appoints, you could argue it's maybe the principal qualification, and maybe that's why he pulls so many of them from Fox News, because that's the Fox gig, right? To project this very emotionally heightened sense of grievance. That's their whole shtick. That's what they all do.
Yes, absolutely. All right. We will move right on along here. Let's take some Rumble rants. Eric Rousseau says, happy metal birthday to Russell Dobular and Bruce Dickinson. Is Bruce Dickinson
yeah,
your same birthday?
Somebody posted that on my wall. Yeah, apparently.
Oh, that's crazy. What are the odds
I think
of that?
Eric posted that on my wall. Yeah.
Wow.
I never knew that.
Nocturnal Human says, Russell, this is all for you. Make sure Keaton doesn't get any. LOL. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
We split our birthdays, when it's my birthday, I split with him. When it's his birthday, he splits with me. That's the deal. Otherwise, we would be very competitive as to who's more popular, because then it would really matter who gets more birthday love, right?
This is what the audience never understood. They were doing tribute like in the old country, except they were doing it here in America.
Yeah, exactly. Happy birthday, Russ, says Hillary Hinton. Gunther will be at your place tonight at 7 with eggs and baby oil. He's already been paid. Just relax and enjoy. No, really, relax. Eggs are still expensive. Good one, Hillary Hinton. Hunter brags about rocking his cocaine with bicarbonate, but fails to mention Corn Pop teaching him how to make his first crack pipe out of a Gerber jar and Brillo pad. Thanks, Abiding. Appreciate that. Sashimi Twinkles, thanks for the $50. Look at that. Let's have a cowbell for Sashimi Twinkles. Appreciate that very much. Says happy birthday, Rush, Charlize Theron, and me. Oh, wow. Same birthday. There you go.
Charlize Theron, huh?
Yeah, there you go. And congrats on reaching over 100K. I remember when some of your vids had 4 views. Also, shout out to Amby at King's College London. I got him hooked on DD. Well, thank you, Sashimi.
Nice.
Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, you know what I always think of, man? We would get 20 live views, and afterwards we'd be like, yo, we had a good house tonight.
Yeah, it's a good house tonight. Well, that's the thing, coming out of theater, if you're doing a show in a 50-seat black box, 35 people watching you do what you do is not bad. I think that's that's what made us stick around as long as we did, because we're like,
probably.
Hey, you know what? I've done plays for 3 people. I've done plays for 4 people. So, 30 is not bad.
Well, this is where doing this, I lament the death of live theater. I also understand it. Hey, I grew up with that expectation, and now I won't do live theater without a streaming component. I wouldn't even consider doing that much work for that kind of exposure. Not meaning exposure for me and my work. I mean, like the message, like what I'm trying to get out with the work. Like it's the juice would not be worth the squeeze to me at this point.
Exactly.
It's just too much effort for too little payoff.
Yeah, we used to do, I used to direct, produce, or act in 10 shows a year, in one capacity or another. And it'd be like, you're working, you put 2 months of work into something for, maybe 300 people to see it if you're lucky,
Right.
Yeah.
So I understand, man. If me coming from that background won't do it, of course the whole scene has collapsed when you had the next generation come in and take a look at it. Go, fuck that. That's why the only people you see doing it are very, very trust fundy. And there were always a lot of trust fund kids doing art, but now it's just them because they're the only ones who can afford to be that impractical.
Exactly.
Like they don't care if they get an HBO contract. They don't care.
Right. It doesn't matter. Exactly. All right. Let's move right on to the first full segment of the day. The Epstein, Casa del Epstein.
All right. So the New York Times, trying to make up for getting scooped by the Wall Street Journal on the birthday book, got a hold of leaked pictures of the inside of Jeffrey Epstein's creepy mansion. He bought this in 1998 from his buddy Lex Wexner over at Victoria's Secret, billionaire who, for no apparent reason, was paying Epstein all kinds of money to be an advisor, even though more money than Warren Buffett has ever been paid to be an advisor. This was a 21,000 square foot townhouse. I've gone to the outside. It's like half a block off from Central Park.
That's right. He's on the Upper East Side, right? And it was
the Upper East Side.
It was
it's like
Weinstein.
Right, it's like right off Fifth.
Right.
Yeah, it's right off Fifth Avenue. Beautiful townhouse. Very mysterious.
Yeah, for some reason, I always think it's in the Village, but that's Weinstein was in the Village, and Epstein was uptown. I got my rich Jewish sex criminals mixed up.
You did.
Weinstein's downtown.
Well, I bike around there a lot.
Yeah.
So I looked up the address at one point and just rode over there. It's right. It's pretty close to the Frick. As a gift for Jeffrey Epstein's 63rd birthday, friends sent letters in tribute to the wealthy financier and convicted sex offender. Several shared a common theme, recounting the dinner gatherings that Mr. Epstein regularly hosted at his palatial townhouse on Manhattan's Upper East Side. Ehud Barak. Now, it doesn't mention this in the article, but from what I've seen, we know of at least 16 visits he made to that townhouse, I believe it is. Former Prime Minister of Israel and his wife noted the great diversity of guests. There is no limit to your curiosity, they wrote in their message, which was compiled with others in January 2016. You are like a closed book to many of them, but you know everything about everyone. Huh. Now, what could that mean coming from a former Israeli prime minister in a house full of sex crimes with cameras up in all the corners, as we will see? I wonder what he meant. Now, also remember, they don't have the excuse that the people in the birthday book from 2003 had, that he wasn't a convicted sex offender yet. At this point, he's a convicted sex offender.
Oh, yeah, like 7 years prior to this, right? What was his plea deal? 08, something like that?
This was 08.
Yeah.
So 8 years prior.
Right.
This is 2016. The media mogul Mortimer Zuckerman suggested ingredients for a meal that would reflect the culture of the mansion. A simple salad and whatever else would enhance Jeffrey's sexual performance. So they know that he is a convicted pedophile. And it sounds like it was just kind of an open joke. Hey, Jeffrey and his sexual libido. Wow, there are always these pretty young girls there. Somebody who was quite explicit about that was Woody Allen. Birds of a feather. being neighbors, my wife Sun Yi and I have been invited to dinner many times. Always accept, always interesting, wide variety of interesting people at every dinner, just about. Politicians, scientists, teachers, magicians, comedians, intellectuals, journalists, an entomologist, a concert pianist. Anyhow, it's always interesting, and the food is sumptuous and abundant. Lots of dishes, plenty of choices, numerous desserts, well served. I say well served, often it's by some professional houseman, and just as often by several young women, reminding one of Castle Dracula, where Lugosi has 3 young female vampires who service the place. And to this, that Jeffrey lives in a vast house alone. And one can picture him sleeping in damp earth. Okay. Yeah.
That would be a great play. Just to have all these like celebrities at Epstein's house for dinner one night.
My Dinner with Jeffrey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he goes on in this letter really to credit Sun Yi, his child bride, with having upped Jeffrey's dinner game. According to the letter, when they first went, there were such small portions, everyone was complaining, and they went out to eat afterwards. Then next time it was takeout Chinese. So apparently it was under Sun Yi's tutelage that he upped his dinner game, and it became these sumptuous multi-course dinners done by a private chef. But here you've got a convicted sex criminal who, according to Woody, very often would have young women doing the serving, and nobody thought that was creepy. Apparently not. Apparently they thought it was funny, if you look at the Mort Zuckerman letter to him. So it just really shows you what disgusting people these elites are and how much impunity they feel.
Right.
Hey, he seems to be accepted by the rich people, so guess he's all right. Doesn't matter what his past crimes have been. He donates to Harvard. It's fine. I'll go to dinner at his house.
Yep, exactly.
So they showed a lot of pictures there. Mr. Epstein smiling alongside Pope John Paul II. That's in the lower left there. Mick Jagger is the top. Elon Musk is in the middle there. And then the far right, oh, man, this is a sad day for our commie friends. Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro. Now, hey, in terms of Fidel Castro, in terms of the Pope, Hunter Biden, we're going to get into this in another segment. Hunter Biden actually made this point. I think he was way too dismissive of the idea of this being a kind of conspiratorial thing that a lot of people knew about. But he does make the point that, like, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein insinuated himself into places where not everybody who took a picture with Jeffrey Epstein was involved in his crimes, and not everybody who accepted a dinner at his house was then going upstairs with an underage masseuse. I don't think that Noam Chomsky, for example, is implicated in crimes. I think Fidel Castro, I think a lot of these people are implicated in not caring about his crimes because he was throwing a lot of money around. And it apparently, for whatever reason, to their eye, looking at him, well, whatever he did, he seems to have been accepted back into society. So who am I to ask questions? Who am I to judge?
Right.
He's still rich. He still insinuates himself with all these people. Now, I don't know what the context of Castro is. You do have to ask why one of the world's most famous communist revolutionaries is even in a room with a guy like that. But I don't know the context.
Yeah, a little context for the Pope conversation. There is a caption if you zoom in. Epstein tells the Pope, he says, "Whoa, I like him young, but not that young." So that actually makes Epstein
who
look
is
pretty
the Pope
good
to
by
judge?
comparison.
That's
yeah,
true.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's true. But yes, it is true that Epstein, because of whoever was, in my opinion, whoever was funding him and keeping him at these levels of society. Yeah, man. I mean, you just see him at a party and you get your picture taken. Why are you, unless you really know the backstory, why would you think anything? So I'm not saying everyone who ever got a picture with Jeffrey Epstein was in on it. I think that's unreasonable, but I think a lot of them were. So,
Fidel could have been making a cigar delivery. You never know.
He might have. He might have. Well, that would have been for Bill Clinton. That was, he had this special kind of humidor he liked to use.
Yes. Yeah.
So you got Larry Summers there on the left, the old pervert himself in the middle there, Bill Clinton, Richard Branson up there on the right. Now this is an autographed dollar bill from Bill Gates that says "I was wrong," suggesting he lost some kind of a bet. Now, Ghislaine and Epstein broke up in 2015. So that's the infamous picture on the right there of the four of them, but she's cut out of it, actually. Now, Bill Gates, you might remember him being asked about his relationship with Epstein. And as Dan Rather might have said, he was more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. So let's take a look at how he responded.
What did you do when you found out about his background?
Well, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so in general, you always have to be careful. And I'm very proud of what we've done in philanthropy. Very proud of the work of the foundation. That's what I get up every day and focus on.
Done talking about Epstein for the time being.
Yeah, does that look like an innocent man to you? Does that look like a man with nothing to hide to you? And I'm sure that is true of a good many of them, even those who didn't actually partake in any sex crimes, knew about it. Just like with Weinstein, everybody knew. I can't remember the name of that screenwriter. He wrote that great article where he said, yeah, listen, everybody knew. Everybody in Hollywood knew. Of course they knew. Of course they knew. How do you keep a secret like that? Of course people knew, especially people who are associating with him after he's a convicted fan of the playground. Come on. At best, they all knew about it and didn't care. So this is his office. In the office, according to photos reviewed by the Times, Mr. Epstein showcased a green first edition of Lolita, the 1955 novel in which an intellectual develops a sexual obsession with a 12-year-old girl and repeatedly assaults her. Atop a wooden sideboard were more framed photos, including one of Mr. Epstein with Saudi Arabia's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. There's that picture. So yeah, when you do a framed, autographed copy of Lolita in your office, you're very proud of what you do, and you want people to know about it, and you want to make it an open joke. Right. Why else would you do that? Why else would you put Lolita on display when you're a convicted sex offender for that particular crime?
Well,
put that on display. What is that about?
You want to be open about it.
People's face in it.
Well,
right.
You want to be open about it because you want people to feel comfortable doing it in front of you so you can film them.
Right. Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's true, too. Yep. So this is...
Yeah, case in point.
This is the Epstein bedroom, and there's a camera you see up in the corner. Now, the massage room was, if I understand correctly, in the same general area. Here's a second camera in an adjoining room. Several of Mr. Epstein's victims have said the mansion was outfitted with a network of hidden video cameras. In the massage room were paintings of naked women, a large silver ball and chain, and shelves stocked with lubricant, according to photos reviewed by the Times. Receipts showed that Diddy had the same supplier. No, that's not in there. Mr. Epstein regularly directed teenage girls, some recruited from middle schools in Queens, to massage him while he was naked. Sometimes he masturbated in front of them, according to court records and interviews with victims. Sometimes he fill in the blank. No surveillance cameras were visible in the photos of the massage room. The Times reviewed 7 birthday messages given to Mr. Epstein in 2016. In addition to those from Mr. Zuckerman, Mr. Allen, and Mr. Barack, there were letters from the linguist Noam Chomsky and his wife. Jochi Ito, an entrepreneur who years later would resign from MIT and the board of the New York Times Company because of his ties to Mr. Epstein, and Lawrence M. Krauss, a prominent physicist. Martin Nowak, a Harvard biologist, contributed a science-themed poem. In their typed letter, Mr. Barack and his wife, Nili Priel, hailed Mr. Epstein as a collector of people. The letter concluded, "May you enjoy long and healthy life, and may all of us, your friends, enjoy your table for many more years to come." Okay, so this does provide yet another window into the hypocrisy of the elite class, because this is the same class that wants to lecture people on their morality, but they have no real morality for themselves. Everything is do as I say, not as I do. It's good for me. It's not good for you. And this certainly, whatever you think about the conspiracy, you can see here very clearly how the vision of a cabal of global fans of the playground connected to the WEF, who want you to own nothing and be happy and eat bugs, congealed into one overarching explanation for the world that we live in and how it got this way and where it's going. And this is why Trump is having such a hard time making this go away. It's foundational to his whole political movement. These creeps who at best turned a blind eye to what they knew he was doing. And at worst, and I think this is unquestionably true of many of them, including quite possibly Donald Trump, they were complicit in his crimes. And these are the people running the world. The cognitive dissonance for a lot of Trump supporters is this whole idea that this was basically libs that they hate and not their own people. That's been shattered by the way that they have handled these files. And it's the reason he's not able to just make them focus on something else like Russiagate, the way historically he's been able to do.
Yeah, and to make matters worse, to make the timing worse, this happens in conjunction with an Israeli genocide. I just want to call your attention. Okay, so what's with the blue and white color schemes where all the bad shit goes down? If you notice on his island, the island's getaway house was blue and white striped as well. These are the Israeli colors. Like, that's bizarre. That's really bizarre. And I think it's intentionally bizarre. I think you're sending a message that, yes, these are the people who now own your ass. Right? These are the people who own your ass now. Yeah. I mean, this is the from the river to the sea. It's the Israeli
I hadn't
flag
caught that. Yeah.
Color scheme where all the bad shit happens. All the bad shit happens in the blue and white rooms. What? You're going to tell me that's a coincidence? I don't buy that. I don't buy that for a second.
Interesting.
The plot thickens. Yes.
Okay. So speaking
Sorry, I fucked you up there. Yeah, got to go back. I think one more.
No, you don't.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah. So speaking of the Israelis, it has not escaped a lot of people's notice that all of a sudden somebody seems to be leaking. Now, with the birthday book, a lot of people thought it was Ghislaine Maxwell. Maybe not. Who knows? Seems pretty interesting that right after that, she got a meeting and got moved to a better facility right after that happened. But Glenn Glenn spotted this from the Times of Israel. A blogger strongly suggests and then threatens that leaks about Trump's involvement with Epstein are Israel's punishment for Trump's refusal to bomb Iran more. All right, so let's read through this a little bit. This is Yosef Janowski. Trump and his administration criticized Netanyahu in Israel, and now the Epstein files are haunting him. See, they're not shy about just openly telling people, yes, we run sexual blackmail rings around the world. And this is what happens if you defy our government and our will and our policy. For a long time, the files had subsided in the background. They weren't considered to be much of a threat to Trump, but all of a sudden, right after he started up with Israel, the files surfaced and they seemed to be overwhelming him. Trump blasted Bibi after shrapnel hit a church in Gaza. The church is in a war zone. It was not targeted. Rather, shrapnel from a nearby explosion hit it. Well, not according to the People's Pope, Pierre Battista Pizzaballa.
Right.
Still, Trump berated Bibi and demanded that he publicly express regret. Huckabee also chimed in, blasting Israel for withholding visas from evangelical groups. It seems that Israel wants to first ensure that the groups don't plan to missionize, but Huckabee seems insensitive to Israel's concerns. Now, that's the first I've heard of that excuse, but it's also a very interesting one, given that they keep justifying us propping up the state of Israel by saying it represents Western values as the only free society, the only democracy in the Middle East. Last I heard, free societies have freedom of religion. So why can't they come do missionary work if it's this bastion of Western civilization in the Middle East? Don't they justify this by telling us that Israel is nothing like these supposedly theocratic monocultures all around them that don't allow any other religious beliefs in their lands? Okay, well, so aren't they the same then, if that's what you're saying? It's interesting how, like, that did not even occur to the writer that you're telling on yourself,
right,
by using that justification. Trump decided to bomb Iran's nuclear sites, and that's commendable. Reports later surfaced that he rejected the option to bomb for a week's time in order to finish off all the sites. Thus, only Fordow was severely damaged, while other sites had only minimal or no damage. And now some old files are threatening him. Perhaps Trump will realize that it really doesn't pay to start up with Israel. Perhaps those implicated in the files will express contrition and regret, because when by divine providence things that were hidden become revealed, it enables people to correct their mistakes and to endeavor to live their lives properly the way God wants them to. Wow. Wow. That is some massage shit right there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe now God has seen you. You're going to correct your ways in the way that you treat his people.
Mm-hmm.
It is, you must help the chosen people, and maybe God will forgive you, and no more files are going to come out anymore if you do what we tell you to do. He's very clear with that, the threat, the subtext of threat, in saying you're going to be contrite now, masking it as spiritual contrition, but making it very clear what he means is you serve Israel, or more of these files are going to come out. Now, this is a writer for a very Zionist right-wing Israeli newspaper. We don't know how much he knows. It tells you a lot about the Israeli belief about what they do, that you have this guy who presumably has real contacts in the government, right? He's a reporter at a high-level newspaper. His understanding, without any shame, is we blackmail people. And if you don't do what we tell you to do, it's going to get worse. We're going to release more information.
Of course. I mean, Trump just said, I think it was yesterday in the same press conference where he called the Epstein thing bullshit, which I guess we have either in this piece or the next one.
The next one.
Next one, okay. In the same press conference, he said, yeah, if Iran starts their program back up, we'll be back, meaning we'll go back in and hit them again, which tracks with what this guy is saying. Like, they're not going to stop until they get their way. They're just not. And that's why anyone who is celebrating, Trump bringing that 12-day war to a close in 12 days, I'm telling you, my prediction is by the end of the year, we're going to have another major escalation in tension, which hopefully, knock on wood, doesn't erupt into a war, but they're going to try it again. We know that. To me, there's no doubt about that in my mind. They didn't do this all for nothing. They didn't do this all to stop now.
Right. Clearly, a lot of these files are being leaked now to embarrass Trump. It could be coming from multiple places. You could have people inside the deep state who legit, as they say, don't like Trump, who are leaking these things now selectively. The whole Clinton dynasty is out of power. Maybe they don't care as much now about things splashing and hitting them.
Right.
Because some of these things implicate him as well, implicate people like Bill Gates as well. Maxwell, it does kind of look like the rumors that the book came from her or her people or her attorneys. It looks like that may have been true. We don't know that. But the fact that she then gets a private meeting with Trump's personal attorney turned deputy AG and then gets moved to a better facility would kind of imply that came from her. And then these pictures coming out of the Epstein House, that could be from the Israelis. And we don't know this based on everything I've seen from accounts of the victims, based on how Trump is behaving, based on the fact that Epstein is no longer with us. I'm pretty sure there are tapes. I'm almost positive there are tapes, and I'm pretty damn sure the Israelis have them, have copies of them. They might not be the only ones who have them, but they have them.
Yeah, could very well be. All right, I'll do a quick chat break before we do the last of the Epstein piece. Does that work?
Sure. Yep.
All right. Madeline Takam says also the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima. Did you know that? Sometimes
the other day, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Kit did a piece about it.
Oh, okay. All right. Michael Castillo, thanks for the $2. Happy birthday, Russell. We all love you. It's very kind of you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ovan the King, thanks for the $5. Says, I work at a print shop, and when I came into work today and saw stuff for Shama Swamp being printed, which is funny because I'm in Michigan. Oh, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Excellent. Okay. Rock on. Hey, Bennett Weiss, that's my dad. Gave you $50 and said, happy one step closer to Dead Day. Well, every day is one step closer to Dead Day, whether it's your birthday or not.
Yeah. 1 year closer, you could say, yeah.
Yes. Russell's Peasant Mind says, my lord, please accept this super chat as tribute in lieu of potatoes this year. Thank you, Russell's Peasant Mind. Appreciate that. Oh, George, thanks for the $10. Says, Yohei Sponder is doing his shit show here called Self-Loving Jew in English. Israelis are surprised based upon SM comments. Are they starting to realize they aren't the most important Zionists? Okay, so he's bringing his show to Haifa, to the homeland. Interesting. Thanks, oh, George. Adversity Sings has happy birthday, Russell. Love you guys.
Thank you.
I dedicate the Deep Purple song "Maybe I'm a Leo" to Russ. Happy birthday. P.S. I'm the one who was in a graveyard when I heard Ozzy died. Oh wow, that's interesting.
Oh, okay.
Oh, George says, happy birthday, Russ. By the way, if you're 56 years old, that means you're starting your 57th year. I know it sucks doing it myself right now, kid. Also, you're 57. All right, there you go. You guys are pretty much same age there. Okay, let's move right on along. We'll take a couple more of these YouTube chats over here. Milton Crow says, happy birthday, Russell. May your mitochondria continue to thrive. The key will be in you always. There you go.
You know, man, the only times that I know a lot of people that get depressed on birthdays, the only time I would be sad on a birthday is if I'm not proud of the way I spent the previous year.
Right.
Like if I feel like I wasted a year, and I've had years like that, we all have, where I feel like that year sucked, man. I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. Other than that, like, yo, man, time goes in one direction unless you're living in the fourth dimension, right?
Right.
That's gonna happen. So really, you just got to keep score by what you did.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, that's it. It is what it is, man.
Yep. Can't do anything about it. Texas Grown, thanks for the $10, said, Russ, we want a German villain voice. There you go. Yeah. Dave Delarai, thanks for the $50.
Where have you hidden the papers?
Yeah, right, there you go. Let's give Dave Delarai a cowbell. A very happy birthday to you, Russell. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. All right. Well, you've got one more piece of this Epstein thing. Hunter is at it again.
Donnie versus Hunter. Who knew? Who knew that the mistake they really made was not swapping out Kamala? Well, swapping out Kamala was a mistake, but that they could have swapped out Biden with Biden.
Yeah. Yeah, Hunter could have
swapped him out with Hunter. Hunter could have won that election.
He could have won.
Jesus Christ. He's gone pretty scorched earth over the last couple months with Andrew Callahan.
I mean, he's not more amoral
Callaghan
than Trump.
Or Callahan?
Callahan. Yeah.
Callahan, right?
I mean, he's not any worse than Trump, really, when you think about it.
No, he's not. He's considerably better.
He's actually better, yeah.
Much better. Okay, so here's Trump. He got asked again about Epstein. He got asked again about it.
The two Kevins, very good.
Mr. President, is Vice President Vance hosting a gathering this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
Is he working on what?
Is he hosting some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw a reporter today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's
what a
run
little
by the
bitch.
Democrats, because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country, and that's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit. Okay?
Total bullshit.
What a bitch J.D. Vance is, huh?
Yeah. Well, he's Curtis Yarvin's bitch. He's not even Donald Trump's bitch. He's Peter Thiel's bitch.
That's right.
So Hunter Biden went back. I guess he enjoyed the first go round. Did another interview with Andrew Callahan. And why wouldn't he have enjoyed it? Honestly, that was the best image rehabilitation I think I've ever seen. Hunter Biden was this sad, tragic figure, and now people are like, Hunter Biden's kind of based. It's
Right.
kind of all right,
Yeah.
this guy.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Okay, so here's Hunter Biden. You know, it's just fascinating to see this guy who grew up among these people from the time he's born. He has been in the corridors of power. And to see him commenting on his observations of what things look like in that world from somebody who's been in it, but not quite of it because he was a crackhead. So he was never really integrated into it. It's somebody with a very unique perspective and no fucks left to give commenting on these things, which doesn't mean I don't think he has blind spots. Obviously, his dad is an enormous blind spot of his. You know, when you want to talk about fans of the playground, last time I looked, it was still up. If it was still up then, I don't see why it wouldn't be now. I always direct people to this video. Paul Joseph Watson, creepy Uncle Joe. That video should be on YouTube. You should be able to look it up. The reason I particularly recommend that video is because a lot of what's in it has been scrubbed from the internet. Everyone's seen the Chris Coons video. It's too pervasive. They couldn't get rid of that. But that is the ultimate compilation of Joe Biden behaving very inappropriately with, I'll say, people for the algo. Just, yes, if you want to see that. Obviously, he has a big blind spot about that. And honestly, watching this video, I think that he's too resistant to the idea that there are conspiracies of the wealthy. especially being where he's been. I don't see how he can doubt that. Maybe because everyone was like, "Listen, man, we can't let Hunter in on it. That guy's a fucking crackhead. He's gonna spill the beans to the Daily Mail tomorrow." So
or the feds.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they never let him in on what goes on behind the scenes. But that aside, he says a lot of stuff here that's pretty interesting.
Epstein was a pedophile, that it came into enormous wealth by very mysterious circumstances and had connections across the globe to very, very powerful people. And he was murdered right before it was all about to blow up. And now there supposedly are no files that the American people can see to explain all of that.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, do I think that there's an actual list? No, I don't think that there's an actual list. I don't think that he was that stupid. But do I think that what they do have implicates him? Yeah, I think so. I mean, Epstein introduced Melania to Trump. The connections are like so wide and deep. Anyway, why do we think they don't want the files released? I don't know. I think John, that thing that John Heilman says is like a long time ago. I think is the most accurate kind of assessment of them, which is everything is projection or confession. Everything. So when he puts out that tweet and he says, Epstein now is the Russia hoax or the Hunter Biden laptop.
The laptop from hell, which the Democrats swore came from Russia. No, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom.
Like, I wonder if it works. Do you know what I mean? When he says to his followers, like, you're no supporter of mine if you keep talking about Epstein.
Yeah. What do you think was in the files?
So at another point in the interview, he kind of tells a story about a dead cat as a metaphor for how Trump and his people are softening up the MAGA base to accept that they're not going to get these files.
Story to tell, but it starts off with the guy who calls and he said, he's watching somebody's cat, calls and asks, and the guy calls and how's the cat? And he said, the cat's on the roof. This whole thing.
I don't know, but I'll look into it.
He says the cat's on the roof, and then the guy says, what's the cat doing up on the roof? He said, call me back in 10 minutes. And he calls him back in 10 minutes. He said, well, the cat's off the roof now, but he fell into the trash can. And the guy goes, well, we'll go get him out of the trash can. He said, well, we get out of the trash can, but, I was carrying him back, and he fell in the pool, and so he's in the pool now. And he goes, and it keeps going and going and going. And finally he goes, how's the cat? And he said, the cat died. And he says, why did you tell me he was on the roof? And he said, I just wanted to soften the blow. And I forget why I just fucking told the cat on the fucking roof story.
I understand. I understand the blow's getting soft.
What they did is they started off and they released like one thing. But it wasn't the full thing, and then they kind of wanted to see if they could kind of get away with that and get people off it and say, well, there's going to be a round 2 of this, and I didn't get it from the FBI, and the Southern District of New York has all the files, and of course it's the Southern District of New York, a bunch of liberal commies up there, we're going to get them under heel, and then when Cash gets in, he's going to be able to figure it out, and old Danny Boy is going to go in, and he's going to, shake the trees and make sure, and then they get that, and then those guys go on TV and they say, well, no, there was definitely not a suicide. It was definitely a suicide. It was clearly a suicide. Sorry, I'd be the one to tell you otherwise. And then, until the point where they thought that you could just kind of slide this in on a Friday at midnight and see what happened, that they're not going to do anything more.
Yeah.
That's it. We just heard the end of the Epstein story.
And finally, he was asked about whether Epstein committed self-deletion.
It was like a suicide. Epstein?
No. Nobody does. I mean, really, except for all of a sudden, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Nobody thinks it was. Yeah. Is that you have that renowned doctor, a coroner, that did the, what's it called?
Postmortem autopsy.
Yeah, the postmortem autopsy.
I don't know if that's what it's called.
Who talks about all the different, the different fractures in his neck and how it was impossible that he could have done that.
You can't
by simply
commit suicide by strangling yourself.
What?
You can't commit suicide.
Exactly. And he says
yourself to death, even if you hate life.
Yes, exactly. That literally is an impossibility in a fiction. And there's this idea that what he did is like he leaned forward. Well, none of it matches up. There's that guy that just testified not testified. He was interviewed that was in the cell next to Jeffrey Epstein's. And he said it's just absolutely impossible that he would have been able to do that. Now you have the tape that comes out, and it's not just 1 minute missing from the tape. It's actually 3 minutes from the tape has been overwritten.
Well, you know that's standard protocol at the most secure facility in the country.
Well, that just yeah. I mean, it's just that alone. You have someone that everyone absolutely knows that if anything happens to him you're going to be accused of a gigantic cover-up, and he dies, and the guy that is his co-conspirator in France, what's his name? He just happens to commit or died in mysterious ways in prison, and the woman who living in Australia, she commits suicide just before that. I mean, look again. I'm feeding into the conspiracy, but clearly, I mean, who believes that he killed himself?
No one.
Nobody.
He's got to be Attorney General someday. He's got a future. We judged him all wrong.
We judged him all wrong. Hunter, clean and sober, is pretty based, man. He's pretty based. He said a lot of interesting things in this interview. His analysis of the Trump base and what they're trying to do to manipulate them into accepting this is spot on. Callahan, I watched most of the interview. Callahan had one of the best moments because Hunter asked him. He said, hey, you go out and you actually talk to these people more than I do. What do you think? Are they going to accept it? And he said, look, if you go to Nebraska and you walk into a grocery store, yeah, pretty much everyone in there voted for Trump. Absolutely. But most of them are just casually voting for Trump.
Sure. Yeah.
He said the real core MAGA people with the MAGA hat, with the MAGA shirt, for them, the core idea that Jeffrey Epstein was part of a global conspiracy of fans of the playground, that's foundational. They're not going to let this go. They will not accept it. And that is what we've observed. That's very much what we've seen. We've seen the Nick really the professional podcasters are the most like nothing to see here. The Alex Joneses, the Nick Sorters like, Russiagate, yeah, Trump's about to take down the whole deep state. Like they are dying to get people to talk about something else. When you look at the chatter among hardcore MAGA people, like that said, I'm done, I'm never voting again, like they're not buying it. Hunter's analysis of the way all this works as somebody who's been around it his whole life is very interesting, but he's a Democrat. He might go scorched earth on Pod Save America. He might go scorched earth on James Carville. Well, that's because these are the people who in the end turned on his dad. That doesn't mean he's going to go scorched earth on the Democrats and the Democratic Party. He's got an enormous blind spot around the fact that much of what he's saying about the Trump team, has the Trump team kicked a lot of political scumbaggery up to another level? Yes, but it's more a crime of intensity than a difference in kind from the kinds of things the other party does. Who started the lawfare? As many people will point out, and as many people warned, what do you think's going to happen when these people get back in power? Now that for people who care so much about fucking norms and guardrails, you're removing a big one by going after this guy in this way.
Yeah.
So he sees it only on one side. What they said about whether there is such a global conspiracy, they talked about this a bit in regards to like the idea that black rappers, the perception that if they get somewhere, they had to have done some, gay sex in order to get there and that kind of thing. I think it's worth seeing. It's worth listening to, because Callahan points out, he says, there are a lot of people who think you can't get successful without doing some horrible crime. And I can tell you that you can get successful without eating a baby, but it's kind of sad. You have so many people who have no economic mobility, so they don't know anybody who's successful, so it's easy to tell them that. What Callahan is eliding is he's not successful like Jeffrey Epstein successful. He's not successful like Bill Gates successful. Now, you could make the argument that people have taken a lot of disparate facts, data points, and crimes and congealed them into an overall generalized theory of wealth and power that's not true. I think you could make that argument that you're taking isolated things as a coordinated whole that aren't coordinated. But I don't think arguing because you had an HBO show about this shit. I don't think you can really make that argument.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Hunter is, he will go places now that a lot of Democrats still won't go. Some of the younger Democrats feel more confident in going there with regards to Epstein and stuff. But, the Bidens are such pariahs within the party now anyway that I guess he feels like, well, I'm never getting back into the tent anyway, so
he should run for Congress.
I could just do that. He should. I mean, he actually should. Like, I think that could be, that could take on this sort of like, punk rock anti-hero sort of vibe.
That's what I'm
really
saying.
Like, and he has a certain charisma about him. He's got a sense of humor, obviously. The cat story. See, I know a modified version of the cat story. I know it as a joke, where a guy's friend is house sitting for his friend's cat who lives with his, aging mother. And so the friend calls him from the road and says, "How's the cat doing?" He says, "Well, the cat died." He says, "Well, why'd you just put it to me so bluntly? Why wouldn't you soften the blow a bit?" He says, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, you could have told me the cat was up on the roof and then called me back in 5 minutes and say, look, unfortunately, the cat fell off the roof. And I'll call you. We're calling a vet now." And then 5 minutes later, you say, "Well, the cat's on his way to the vet, but he might not make it." And then 5 minutes later, you call me. "Unfortunately, we had to put the cat down." So the guy says, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'll keep that in mind." So the guy says, "Well, how's my mom doing?" He says, "Well, she's on the roof." Yeah. So that's the story. That's the version of that I knew. So I thought he screwed it up, but he was telling the story version.
Right.
All right. Let's see here. More likely Trump pedo or Epstein intelligence? Well, both would be the idea. I mean, that's the theory. That's the theory going around now. Likely both. The Yuppies says Woody Allen actually said, "and such small portions" at Epstein's mansion. Truth is so much stranger than fiction. We are ruled by disgusting monsters. Thank you, the Yuppies. Miles Tegg says, turns out the movie Salo was a reenactment of how the uber-rich get their rocks off in real life. Not surprising at all. George R. from Australia. Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Killer Hinton says, dirtbags, I'm beginning to doubt the usury blood cult child blanking surveillance state war machine can be fixed by voting. Sorry about the black pill thingy. Thank you. Chase the Mind Sculptor. Happy birthday, Russ. Thank you for always your enlightening commentary. You too, Keaton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Russ, says the Gold Rush. You're a Gen X gent. Ain't too late to be my stepdad. Mom's single and she's a metalhead. There you go.
I always use the Bob Fosse line. People say, "Why are you single?" I don't know anyone I dislike enough to inflict that kind of torture on.
Eric Husso says Bill Clinton swears that he was only at Epstein's to pose for a painting. There you go. Shotgun Willie says finding out last episode that Sydney Sweeney wrenches on muscle cars and shoots gave me a raging freedom boner. I haven't been this big and hard since John Ashcroft sang, "Oh, I gotta find the rest of that." He got cut off with the characters. But that sounded like a good one. I'll try and look that up on the back end. Thank you very much for that. A happy birthday, voice maestro Russ. May your future hold interesting times, a China journey, and plenty sleazy felines. There you go.
Thank you.
All righty.
I was talking to a friend who called me this morning to wish me a happy birthday about this. All right, so this age is a very weird window if you're in good shape, and I am, you can still commit yourself to doing things that require a lot of like physical vigor and stamina. But you know that window is closing.
Right.
You know you got like 10 years at best before you have to like plan things based on physical limitation, where you have to scale back how much you plan to do in a day, that
Right.
kind of thing. So it's like, well, maybe I should just leave the country now.
Right.
It's a whole other thing you have to factor in when planning your life.
Yeah. There is that.
You're on the downward slope now. It's only going to speed up.
All right, folks, let's have some fun. South Park was back. Every 2 weeks now, you get a new South Park episode. So let's go back in time to the day after episode 1 of season 27 premiered, which portrayed Trump much in the way that they portrayed Saddam Hussein, as the devil's sort of gay sex toy, if you will. And so here is Trey Parker issuing a very sincere apology for that episode at Comic-Con.
Guys, did you anticipate the reaction today? Have you been following it? What do you make of it? We're terribly sorry. Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll leave it there. It's all good. Okay.
That's one of the other keys to their success is, they don't comment much on their work. They kind of let it speak for itself. And who missed that sarcasm there is the genius, the quartering. South Park apologizes. South Park bans politics after Trump episode. Some people tried to make it seem like that episode was a failure and that it blew up in their face, but they were in the minority. The White House didn't see the humor in it, though. They lashed out at South Park over spoof of Donald Trump in bed seducing Satan. Desperate attempt. So the DHS spokesperson said, the left's hypocrisy truly has no end. For years, they have come after South Park for what they labeled as offense content. I guess they meant offensive. But suddenly they are praising the show. White House spokesperson Taylor Rogers tells Entertainment Weekly via email, adding that just like the creators of South Park, the left has no authentic or original content to premiere. This show hasn't been relevant for over 20 years and is hanging on by a thread with uninspired ideas in a desperate attempt for attention, the statement continues. President Trump has delivered on more promises in just 6 months than any other president in our country's history, and no fourth-rate show can derail President Trump's hot streak. Well, South Park released some teaser images of this week's episode in advance of it. And on Tuesday, which is the day before it aired, the Department of Homeland Security tried to kind of reclaim South Park for themselves, since South Park has kind of been non-ideological in the past and has embraced some conservative culture war issues and some liberal ones as well. And so despite them claiming it was irrelevant just a couple weeks ago, they tried to make it relevant again by signaling that this was going to be a pro-ICE episode. So Homeland Security tweets out an image of the upcoming episode of the ICE car. Nick Sorter really thought the left was going to lose their shit over this one. He was excited that he would get South Park back. Spoiler alert, that's not what happened. And South Park signals that very thing by quote tweeting that, wait, so we are relevant? Hashtag eat a bag of dicks. There you go. So that gave you a good idea as to what this episode was going to be about. And as you might imagine, they really torched Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, in this episode. So we can't show videos here, although I do have a brief audio clip I can play you, which we're going to get into. But we can summarize the episode. Kristi Noem obviously lampooned pretty harshly, and yes, they go there with the puppy killing and the dog killing. Every time she sees a dog, she blows it away. Now, I'm not going to show the gory details of that, since South Park, even though it's a cartoon, it could get pretty hardcore, which would probably get us demonetized or whatever. Basically, dog limbs, teeth, hair, blood flies everywhere every time she sees a dog. She very graphically blows it to bits. And here she is posing in a CCOT-like facility, or an ICE facility, posing for the cameras, accentuating the lips. And here she is in the hot tub with a glass of wine, and the running gag at there. Oops, another dog in the room. There you go. That dog ends up all over the walls, and there she is, drunker, with her Botox wearing off. That is another gag of this. ICE ends up raiding heaven in this episode because one of the liberal protesters lets slip that there are a lot of Latinos are great people, and that Latinos also go to heaven, and so that gives them a lead for them to go up and raid heaven. And the subplot of this, the sort of B plot of this, which is equally good, is Cartman and Clyde Donovan are sort of competing for who can be the sort of top dog in the right-wing podcast sphere space. So, of course, you got Clyde doing his Charlie Kirk style podcast, hawking He-Man supplements, which is great. When they do the Charlie Kirk debate me bro stuff, all the while he's debating a student, he's popping these He-Man pills and drinking water. It's very well done. Cartman here gets furious that Clyde is upstaging him, and he commandeers the space and starts challenging the wokesters to their debates. And they ultimately end up competing for the Charlie Kirk Award for Young Master Debaters. And there's a lot of wordplay going on there, as you can see. Now, ICE is a major focus of the episode because at the beginning of the episode, the guidance counselor, Mackey, calls Clyde into the room and says, people are really upset about this podcast. Okay, why you gotta say all this mean stuff and make everybody mad? And it's very insightful. Clyde responds, "Look, man, I just got to make my nuts." That's what he's saying, which really taps into the fact that yes, they agitate culture war bullshit for money. So they pick up on that, and then Mackey is kind of forced into an adjacent predicament because his job gets basically doged out of existence. Power Christian Principle says, the government's cutting back on unnecessary personnel, including guidance counselors, because now we have the Bible to counsel kids with, and so you're out of a job. And so in order to meet his nut, he decides he's going to join ICE because ICE is recruiting, and he's not happy about it, but they offer him all kinds of incentives, which we'll break down in a more serious context in our next segment. But ICE is really desperate to attract new people. So they're offering all kinds of signing bonuses, student debt forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. So they wrote Mackey in, and the first job is to go and raid Dora the Explorer live performance. And so there they are on the scene. And Mackey, there he is, doing very well. And he's saying to this woman, I'm sorry, I just have to meet my nuts. So you got to get in the van. So what South Park does here is they're not even engaging with the political question of whether or not these ICE raids are have any sort of moral merit, right? They're just supposing that this is a ridiculous and over the top crackdown, which I think is a brave and courageous stance. But yes, Kirsty Noem's Botox does wear off at various points throughout the episode. So there she is congratulating him on the job well done while her face melts off. I won't get into spoilers, but it gets even a little better than that. So you could see this was hardly a pro-ICE or a pro-Trump episode. We've only dealt with a little bit of it so far. Mario Nawfal, Matt and Trey have a character joining ICE with Kristi Noem shoots small dogs on screen. Subtle callback to her untrainable puppy story. Vice President Vance makes the cut too. 2 episodes deep into the Trump era, and South Park's already running at full throttle. That's right. So J.D. Vance does actually make an appearance. There he is as the sort of mini-me to Trump's Dr. Evil, if you will. This is at Mar-a-Lago, where Mackey gets called to because of his great work. And here he is. Would you like me to apply the baby oil to Satan's asshole, boss? Yes, that's right. He says that. We can actually play the audio from that.
Would you like me to apply the baby oil to Satan's asshole, boss? Would you like me to apply the baby oil to Satan's asshole, boss?
So, it's pretty merciless and pretty crude. And then, of course, the way the story ends, for the most part, won't get into all of the spoilers, but Mackey ends up finding Clyde, the grifting podcaster, at Mar-a-Lago, and he rediscovers his true talent by counseling him about having sold his soul to the MAGA movement. So it's a great episode. It was really, really well done. I thought this was even better than the first one. It had two really compelling plots. It was very, very funny. It really, in true South Park fashion, just pulled no punches regarding, now J.D. Vance and Kristi Noem. Very, very timely, very of the moment, had its finger right on the pulse of the anti-woke podcast grift, that whole scene. And the question now moving forward is like, okay, so, the conservatives after the first episode felt like, okay, they got to kind of take it in stride, right? They look like triggered, lib type personalities if they make too big a deal over this. So here's Scott Jennings on CNN after the episode 1 premiere.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of get to eat their cake and have it too. They're like taking the money and then also knifing their parent company.
I mean, the lesson here is that if you're funny and you make money and people want to watch your show, you can do things. And if you're not funny and you're committed to partisan liberal hackery that's hemorrhaging viewers and is not profitable, then you can't do things. And just a few days ago, the left was convinced that Colbert was fired for political reasons. Obviously, this company is airing material that is not favorable to Donald Trump. It is objectively hilarious. I watch every episode of these guys and have for years. I think it's great. But,
so you're cool with it?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Even the AI image at the end.
Okay, now, the big man, the dear leader, is, of course, not cool with it. And so we'll see, how long they put up with this. So, all of a sudden, this episode got a little more pushback than the first one because it goes at one of the real pillars of the movement, which is ICE and border security and deportations. Is South Park just going to do a full season about Trump shit now? Because this shit sucks. South Park equals trash now, says Mike. Why don't they show medical clinics full of immigrants? Why don't they show immigrant people flooding to sanctuary states for votes? Yeah, that sounds like a really funny episode. That sounds like great entertainment, is immigrants moving into sanctuary states and voting.
I just don't understand why every time conservative writers try to create material, it flops. I don't get it.
Here's an idea for an episode. An immigrant family moves into an apartment in New York, and they go vote. That's great.
What was the
Must-see TV.
What was the Family Guy-esque thing they tried to do? They did like one episode of it, and you never saw it again.
Well, they did a whole parody Family Guy episode where they took apart Family Guy.
This was floating around on X. I think we actually covered it. It was awful. It was like the traditional American dad.
Oh, you're talking about the anti-woke cartoon. Yeah. That Dave Rubin was a part of. They had, what's the guy? Larry Elder did a voice. Yeah. I don't even think they did a full pilot. Like the reviews of the teaser were like so horrible.
Thing
that they scrapped
that was it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
That was it. Daily Wire. What happened?
Right.
What happened? They were going to build a whole studio to challenge Disney. What happened?
Right.
What happened?
Yeah.
I mean, to Scott Jennings' point, I don't entirely disagree with it. Like, yeah, man. I mean, talent is talent. Yeah, I'm not saying you can't do conservative content that's good. It's a catch-22. People who want to do things from that point of view tend not to have that talent.
Right.
They just tend not to have that creativity to work in that medium. They're very good at pushing rage, click rage bait buttons. That's a very crude skill. To actually write a structured script that people enjoy, it's a little more nuanced.
Yes, exactly. Why don't they show the government money wasted on the NGOs, and why don't they show the immigrants killing people? Yeah, that's an idea. So the quartering comes back. South Park epically fails at triggering Trump supporters in worst episode in years, lazy and unfunny. That was in response to the first one. So you see, some people were not taking the joke to begin with, or trying to present this as an L for South Park. And, it just aired last night, so we will have to see what the reactions are. J.D. Vance tweeted out, I finally made the cut. That just came across the wire right before we went on. So he seems to be taking it in stride. But, the big man isn't, right? So how far are they going to go? How far can they afford to push it? Will they do any Israel content? That's a big question that I have, and that's an important one. But, during Trump's first term, the South Park guys were reluctant to make fun of him. In fact, they didn't even have a Trump character. They had Mr. Garrison, dye his hair and do Trump-like makeup, and they kind of just made up a fantastical, plot for that whole character. Because they said, Trump, just making fun of Trump's not really worth doing. Everybody's doing it. We think it's easy. We think it's boring. And I agreed with them at the time. I think that was true, because also you were sort of joining a cultural pylon. Even though Trump won in 2016, he didn't change the culture in 2016.
Right.
You had MSNBC's ratings went through
quite
the roof.
the opposite.
Right, right, exactly. Like the woke movement got like a B12 shot when he won.
Right.
And MSNBC's ratings were huge, so there was no need to do it. It would have been boring. It would have been banal, redundant, and uninteresting. Now, though, I think there's a massive need for it, which is why I think it is important that they are deciding to do this, because there has been a cultural shift to the point where now Sydney Sweeney is an ad worth doing, that, taking digs at Trump is countercultural in a way now that it wouldn't have been in 2017. I'm not saying it's the most radical thing in the world, but I think given the administration's crackdown on speech, given their tendency to go after anybody who goes after them, to have arguably the only people in show business who are like totally cancel proof. I mean, even Stephen Colbert wasn't cancel proof, as he learned the hard way.
He sucked. He had no real audience. That's a major difference. South Park is wildly popular and successful.
Exactly. So to have these guys who are truly cancel-proof say, okay, you know what? We're going to do an anti-ICE episode. We're going to do an episode that just takes apart this guy on what is still, despite his imploding poll numbers, his strongest issue. I do think it's meaningful. I do think it is good that they're going there. It does take certain balls to just so unabashedly and so crudely and rudely show such little respect for these people who ultimately demand respect and subservience. That's what they get off on. They get off on beating people into submission. These are arguably the two guys left in show business who they really can't do that to. And so it kind of does fall to them to do this. And it's good that they are, in my opinion. And they're doing it, most importantly, they're doing it very well, as they always do. You mentioned Family Guy. One of the things that the South Park guys always hated about Family Guy is that the jokes had nothing to do with the story. There are no stories to the Family Guy episode. It's just a collection of gags.
Yeah, I never liked it.
South Park tells a real story, and there's real technique on display there. For example, the show kind of ends. This isn't the total end. I won't ruin the total end. With Mackie providing counseling for Clyde, and that is also how the show begins. Like one of the first shots of the episode is Mackie doing that, right? So you have this real sort of storytelling working. So that's the other secret to their success, is it's actually very well done.
Yeah, well, this is a big part of why I am always advocating for arts and culture. I do feel it's important. I do feel it's important in defining the conversation. I do feel that very often a song or a play or a movie can break through in a way that a straight political argument won't.
Oh, sure.
And they are definitely doing the Lord's work in regards to, I mean, it was very predictable if they kept in this direction. It was convenient timing for them for this episode to drop right after the Colbert thing so they could wrap themselves in virtue. No, see, I'm cool with that. I'm cool.
Right,
well,
right.
are you going to be cool with it on the second episode? On the third episode? On the fourth episode? No, you're not. We know these people are the biggest fucking snowflakes. We experienced it on our own. People would very often say when Biden was in power, why don't you go after Republicans more? And we said we will.
Mm-hmm.
We will. If they're in power. They're not in power. Biden's in power. We're going to talk about who actually is making these decisions. And I'd say we were true to our word. Now that they're in power, that's who we go after. I think that's what they're doing also. Because as you point out, even in Trump's first term, in a weird way, he wasn't in power.
Right.
Not culturally.
No, he didn't have the
Culturally,
cultural
he was
capital.
not.
No.
If anything, the culture became much more woke. So naturally, in that period, that's what they covered. That was where the power was. That is what you are supposed to do as an artist, as a provocateur, as a comic. You go after power. That's where the power is now. It's very appropriate that their season be that. I have no doubt that if you wind up with President Pete Buttigieg, who demands tampons in all the high schools, they'll be all over it.
Right. I mean, they did the Disney episode. They did the gender swapping thing. They did the transports episode. Like, they've done all that. And, of course, the the conservatives loved them then. And so now they have to pretend to tolerate them because, all right, we can't just go mask off full hypocrite. But, you know, you're 2 episodes in. They're more lukewarm on this one than they were the first one. What happens when you go 3, 4, 5, 6 in?
Exactly. They're gonna have a meltdown.
Yeah, exactly. It was funny the first time. Now it's getting old. Yeah.
Now it's getting. They have no ideas. They have no ideas. They're so terrible now. They went for libs. They're like libs now. It's like CNN now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really recommend you watch it. It was a great episode.
And that's actually, we're going to be doing an ad for that today, right? Everything I Don't Like is CNN by A. Chud.
Yeah, right. By A. Chud. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Our favorite author, A. Chud.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, it's a great episode. I definitely recommend watching it. I liked it even better than the first one. And the first one was very good. Okay. Let's see here. Miles Tagg says, P.S. Happy birthday, Russ. Daria says, his genes are superior genes. His genes are dobular. There we go. There you go. Good one, Daria. Camilo Chavez says, happy birthday, Russ. The picture with Fidel Castro has Andres Pastrana, former Colombian president, who got him the interview with Fidel. Interesting. Okay. Goo81 says the same pic showed him with Arab leaders as well from UAE, Qatar, and MBS of Saudi Arabia. Explains Abraham Accords and complicity in Gaza. Yeah, good call. Happy birthday, Russ, from your favorite actor, Pedro. Here we go. That's a good point. That's a good point. Thank you for that. Albukid says, turns out it might be the tech bros and scientists that are the real scandal of Epstein's playhouses. They usually spent more time at Zorro Ranch in New Mexico than the island or New York apartments. The left don't want to touch this, says Sashimi. Epstein moved $250,000 of Noam Chomsky's money when he moved to Arizona in 2017.
Oh, really?
He went on Lolita Express to have dinner with Woody Allen at Epstein Mansion.
Well, yeah, I didn't know about the 250. It came out, like everybody knows about the dinner.
Yeah.
With Chomsky and Woody Allen. That was pretty widely reported.
Yep. Goo81 says, I had the same thought, Keaton. The room was so creepy as it's too dark blue and white, especially the glass tables and carpet just spells out Israel. Yeah. To me, that's a sign right there.
Well, they don't have pictures of this in the article, but they talk about it. In his entranceway, he had framed prosthetic eyeballs. Like, that's what lined the entrance into the house.
Wow. So, yeah, I mean, you talk about, obviously, it's a set. It's a blackmail set.
You're being watched. That's what that's telling you. You're being watched.
Of course. Happy birthday, Russ. And may every day be another wonderful secret. Enigmas never changed. Good one. We should have done something like that. I should have written you. That would have been a good gag if I wrote you an Epstein birthday card. Yeah. Yeah.
With like a stick drawing with breasts on it.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Russ. Was the summer of '69 for my birthday too. There you go. Just week and change apart. Leos are based.
That was a very eventful summer. That was the Manson murders.
Yep.
First Men on the Moon.
Yep.
Chappaquiddick. The Mets won the World Series.
That's right.
Woodstock.
That's right. The amazing Mets, Woodstock. Yeah, exactly. All went down then. Speaking of going down, we are up to 692 likes. The birthday edition. That's right. And we're at 2,058 strong in the YouTube channel. All right, folks, let's move on to a more serious ICE story than the South Park episode. ICE is hiring, by the way. So, there's weak job numbers out there. The job reports have been weak.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need a job, just so you know, ICE needs you. America needs you. Department of Homeland Security tweets out, America has been invaded by criminals and predators. We need you to get them out. And they redoubled their efforts. Protect, serve, deport. Join.ice.gov. America needs you. Okay, let's try sweetening the deal. We're taking father and son bonding to a whole new level. No age cap. Join ICE now. Now it's like Ukraine.
Hang on. No age cap? And they're waiving student loans?
Yeah, and they're waiving yes.
Do you have a link?
Yeah, there it is. Join.ice.gov. There's all kinds of financial incentives, which we'll get into.
I'm there.
In a moment. Raylan Stark comments, drop the degree requirement and let the good old boys in. Been working on rooftops for over a decade. Think I can handle a little discomfort and taking down illegals. Don't need a degree for that. Now, DHS...
I mean, really, that would be the way to recruit. Like, they should just drop the degree requirement.
Well,
not that I'm trying to give them any ideas.
Well, no ideas necessary. So DHS, you can tell how desperate they are. They actually replied to this guy and said, no college degree required to be a deportation officer.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. There you go.
Excuse me, I meant junior high.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So the American Prospect did a write-up here. FEMA employees reassigned to ICE. That's how you know they need people. A number of employees with the Federal Emergency Management Agency were informed via email late on Tuesday that they have been reassigned, effective immediately, to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The workers had 7 days to accept the reassignment under threat of being removed from the civil service. According to sources familiar with the matter, those reassigned were probationary employees with less than 1 year at FEMA, who, because of presumed weaker civil service protections, were fired early in the Trump administration, but reinstated after a court order. Like at many federal agencies, these employees had been on paid administrative leave for months, among the over 100,000 men and women across the federal government who have been collecting a salary, yet doing no work. But now these probationary FEMA employees on leave are apparently being shifted as a stopgap maneuver to bolster the ranks of ICE, which received tens of billions of dollars in the GOP megabill, but faces the daunting task of hiring thousands of new agents to an unpopular agency with plummeting morale. Yeah, that's the thing they didn't think about. Okay, we're going to have all this funding to get all these new ICE guys in to expand the agency, but what if people don't want to join? Something they didn't really think of. It's unclear how many employees were reassigned from FEMA in this manner and exactly how they would serve. Employees were told that the position description would be explained to them separately. They were given 7 calendar days from receipt of the letter to accept or decline the appointment. A non-response would be considered acceptance. If you choose to decline this reassignment or accept but fail to report for duty, you may be subject to removal from federal service, as provided in 5 U.S. Code, whatever the email reads, referring to a portion of the U.S. Code. In a statement, a DHS spokesperson told the Prospect, under President Trump's leadership and through the One Big Beautiful Bill, DHS is adopting an all-hands-on-deck strategy to recruit 10,000 new ICE agents. To support this effort, select FEMA employees will temporarily be detailed to ICE for 90 days to assist with hiring and vetting. Their deployment will not disrupt FEMA's critical operations. FEMA remains fully prepared for hurricane season. Patriotic Americans are encouraged to apply at join.ice.gov. Okay, well, if FEMA is not going to be disrupted by this, then why are you threatening to fire these people outright if they don't want to be reassigned? Like, if they don't want to be reassigned, you're saying, well, we can just dismiss you entirely. That would no doubt hurt FEMA. That would no doubt take people away from FEMA, which is the goal in the first place here. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act more than tripled ICE's budget, allowing for the hiring of up to 10,000 new agents, but experts immediately question how successful this effort would be. In Trump's first term, a proposed hiring surge failed to come close to reaching its goals. Since the law's passage, ICE has advertised hiring terms that look increasingly desperate. It has offered signing bonuses as high as $50,000 as part of a program to lure back recent retirees. It has dangled student loan forgiveness and generous repayment plans for new recruits while tightening student loan options for everyone else. It briefly offered cash bonuses to agents for rapid deportations before canceling the proposal. So they keep trying to sweeten the deal more and more and more to bring back retirees, to transition people from other sections of DHS into ICE, cash bonuses, student loan forgiveness, lifting the age cap, no degree requirements. Doesn't seem to be working. So who are you going to call? Superman. So here's Dean Cain. Dean Cain of Superman fame, American actor and icon, says, I meme, therefore I am. Dean Cain announces he's joined ICE and is calling on fellow Americans to do the same. Kind of interesting, since this last Superman movie had fairly prominent anti-ICE themes working in it, but Dean Cain was not in that film. So here's what he has to say about joining the force.
Dean Cain here. And for those who don't know, I am a sworn law enforcement officer as well as being a filmmaker. I felt it was important to join with our first responders to help secure the safety of all Americans, not just talk about it. So I joined up. And here's your opportunity to join ICE. You can earn lots of great benefits and pay. Yeah, since President Trump took office, ICE has arrested hundreds of thousands of criminals, including terrorists, rapists, murderers, pedophiles, MS-13 gang members, drug traffickers, you name it. Very dangerous people who are no longer on the streets. You can defend your homeland and get great benefits like a $50,000 signing bonus. Think about that. Student loan repayment legally. Enhanced retirement benefits and special pay for those in the field operations and law enforcement roles. I don't get that special pay, but you also don't need an undergraduate degree. You can get to work right away. So if you want to help save America, ICE is arresting the worst of the worst and removing them from America's streets. I like that. I voted for that. They need your help. We need your help to protect our homeland and our families. So check into it, as I said, and join today if it's something that tickles your fancy, because we can use you.
Yeah, we could use you. Pulling out all the stops. It was an indie songwriter in the Village who had this great line in one of his songs. He says, Uncle Sam is just like an uncle. He only calls you when he needs you. Right? Yeah, they need you. They need you. Yeah, it's something that they didn't think through. Yeah, who wants to go and, kick, gardeners' doors in for a living, in masks and in street clothes? Who wants to do that? And the fact that they seem to be having trouble recruiting, despite a fairly bad jobs market, if the disgraced lightweight labor statistics chief's words are to be taken at face value. They seem to be struggling.
It was Elvis Presley. If there's anything I hate, it's Mexicans. That's why I'm supporting President Trump's effort to recruit 10,000 ICE agents.
Yeah.
He went to Nixon. That's one of the most famous pictures ever taken in the White House, where he, was pumping up the DEA.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a long tradition of getting, celebrities to try to back these kinds of efforts, but it really evokes dystopian science fiction. Like as soon as I saw that DK ad, I thought of Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Hey, want to fight?
Right.
Join up today, citizen. It's very much that, man. Like it is such Nazi shit. I mean, it really is. Just you've got this, very minor celebrity because nobody with a real reputation is gonna back this kind of thing or put their name on this. Even if you're a conservative, anyone with any sense can see this is not going to age well. You're not going to be remembered fondly for attaching your reputation to this. But yeah, man, like going and getting celebrities to support something like this, it is something out of dystopian sci-fi, man, where you've got that very corrupt mix of popular entertainers with a fascist regime. And you did see that under the Nazis. Like, yeah, you did have your artists that fled. You also had your Leni Riefenstahls. You did have your artists who attached themselves to the regime and helped to promote their propaganda. It's a very chilling example of that.
Yeah. And, I think it is a pretty good indicator of the trajectory of public sentiment that they're having a tough time getting these jobs filled because it's not even that many. I mean, 10,000
they couldn't. The article mentioned they couldn't do it in the first term with a much lower goal.
Right. Exactly.
Who wants to be the massed Nazi police force? This is the most hopeful element to me of all this. Americans, in the end, communists will lament it, but here I think you're seeing the strength of this fierce individualism that we have as part of our self-image, part of our cultural myth. We don't like the idea of collective action, whether it's communism or whether it's fascism. We just don't like that kind of thing. It doesn't really fit our idea of ourselves. As soon as you start seeing that kind of like troops in the streets with masks grabbing people, it doesn't even matter what it's for ideologically. The American bloodstream will tend to want to reject any organization that presents itself that way.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly right. Dorian Marquis, South Park verse isn't real, then I'll be impressed. Yeah, as I said, I would love to see them do that as well. We shall see. Teresa Nino Oliva, thanks for the $10. Feliz cumpleaños, Russell. There we go. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Truth Seeker, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Truth Seeker. Thank you, Truth Seeker, very much for that. The original Constitution counted slaves as 3/5 a human being. Trump wants to count undocumented people as 0 a human being. Shows how he feels about their worth. Yes, I know it was the Yankees who want to count the slaves as 0, but still, no, I understand your point. And yes, I would have said that if you hadn't. But thank you for that generous super chat. Appreciate that very much. Vance called into the Jimmy Dore show last night. Seemed like a good guy to me. Yes, thank you, Russell's peasant mind. Alexis Hellwig, happy birthday, Russ. Beautiful. There you go.
Thank you.
Genuine question. New York City workers, they're Rockefeller Republicans too, or is Zoran's tack about choosing PMCs over disaffected workers because it's hard to organize? Zoran's tack about... I don't think he's necessarily choosing PMCs over disaffected workers. I just think, if you look at the data, yeah, he's done well over disaffected PMCs. He's done well with that cohort. Like, I don't think he's going out of his way to shun working class voters. He did very well among the working class voters too. He did very well, amongst both groups. But yeah, it tended to be the victims of elite overproduction, as they say, that put him over the top.
Yeah, I've always said in 2016 the reason I was calling the election 50-50 on election day was because I was talking to people in Queens. Right. I know people think of if you're not from New York City, you think of New York City as this monolith. the opinions of working class people in Queens, I have found, are really not any different from the opinions of working class people in Alabama or working class people in Detroit. Like, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same attitudes. So just like the working class anywhere else in the country, the people where I come from all became Fox News Republicans. They all got converted over to that. Now, what's core to that? It's the culture war shit. That's why I blow a gasket when I see things like, we're going to spend $65 million to bring people in for gender affirming care from around the country. We're going to be a sanctuary, because I know what that does with that cohort. And I know how skillfully outlets like Fox News use that to split the working class off from any economic effort to improve their conditions. Because these same guys will scream their heads off about how they're getting fucked by their union and how the union leaders are corrupt. It would not be hard to get them over to traditional New Deal leftism, but you got to drop the culture war shit, and that's exactly why it's there. That's exactly why it's there, and that's why I don't understand why people with an economic analysis, even now, don't get that. I don't understand why they will not just present an economic message and say, you know what, that shit's very divisive, and if that's really what is your main concern, there are a lot of organizations that specialize in those concerns that advocate for that. That's not what this campaign is about. This is about what we need for all workers. What is so fucking hard about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, let's move right on along.
All right, this is kind of related in a weird way to the South Park segment. Here's an example of what happens in a cultural moment like this when you're not very good, you're not very talented, and you're not making anybody any money. Bye Bye Buoy from The Sun. I didn't know they had a U.S. version of The Sun. They don't have the Page 2 girl here, though. You know what that is, Keaton?
Page 2 girl, I didn't know. I did know they had a son here, though, actually. But I don't know the Page 2 girl.
Yeah, in England, they have a photo of a topless woman on the second page. A different topless woman every issue. I mean,
so long.
I don't know if they've stopped doing it. Not last time I was there, they still had it. The Howard Stern show to be canceled after nearly 20 years on Sirius XM as $100 million contract is up later this year. Who the hell listens to Howard Stern at this point? So Trump was asked about this. This is what he had to say.
Yes, I've got an entertainment-based question for you. A few weeks ago, Stephen Colbert announced that he was leaving his show. Howard Stern announced that him and Sirius XM Radio are parting ways. Do you think the hate Trump business model that's been in the entertainment business is going out of business because it's not popular with the American people?
Well, it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked really for a long time, and I would say pretty much from the beginning. Colbert has no talent. I mean, I could take anybody here. I could go outside in the beautiful streets and pick up a couple of people that do just as well or better. They get higher ratings than he did. He's got no talent. Fallon has no talent. Kimmel has no talent. They're next. They're going to be going. I hear they're going to be going. I don't know, but I would imagine because they get, Colbert has better ratings than Kimmel or Fallon. You know that. Howard Stern, it's a name I haven't heard. I used to do a show. We used to have fun, but I haven't heard that name in a long time. What happened? He got terminated?
Yeah, they're going to separate ways because I think what they're offering salary-wise is real low than what he's getting.
You know when he went down?
Whenever you want.
You know when he went down? No, before. When he endorsed Hillary Clinton, he lost his audience. People said, give me a break. He went down when he endorsed Hillary Clinton.
Mr. President,
I think it's a little more than that, but we'll get into it. The iconic Howard Stern show on Sirius XM is set to be canceled after a stunning 20-year run, sources exclusively told the U.S. Sun. Stern, 71, who has had a megabucks contract for decades at the subscription satellite radio provider, will likely cut some sort of deal for Sirius to keep his catalog upon his exit, sources said. Quote, Stern's contract is up in the fall, and while Sirius is planning to make him an offer, they don't intend for him to take it, one insider said of the impending end to the shock jock's latest 5-year contract. Sirius and Stern are never going to meet on the money he's going to want. It's no longer worth the investment. The insider added that fans may expect Sirius to strike a deal for his library. Quote, but as far as him coming back to doing the show, there's no way they can keep paying his salary, the source said. Stern rose to fame in the 1980s when he launched the Howard Stern Show. He did a 20-year run with New York City's WXRK, where his show first became nationally syndicated into 60 markets with 20 million listeners at its peak. Stern moved over to SiriusXM in 2006 and has been there ever since. When he first cut his teeth as a shock jock, discussing all sorts of taboo topics later in his career, while he first cut, Stern became known for his in-depth celebrity interviews. Now, this is from Autism Capital, and I got to say, it's surprisingly dead on. Old school Howard Stern really was the GOAT. The irony is that new school Howard would cancel old school Howard. This always happens when someone becomes a legend, but they want to keep the money flowing. They keep going past the point of being a rebel outsider. They've now become a rich and famous insider and ultimately become the thing they previously hated. Then the Howards of tomorrow rag on new Howard the same way that old Howard used to. It's the life cycle of the shock jock who can't let it go. It's nature. That was pretty good there. Maybe he's not autistic after all. Maybe he's flying a false flag.
Maybe he's a savant.
That's stolen valor there. Maybe he is. Maybe he's a savant. So Howard Stern is very much a very New York figure. Like New Yorkers knew Howard Stern before the rest of the country really did. And yeah, man, he really invented the space in a lot of ways that we're in. You could argue he is definitely the grandfather of podcasts. He was the first one to really go on and start doing this kind of edgy show. Like, yeah, you had Alan Berg, who was tragically assassinated in Colorado, who was the basis for Bogosian's Play Talk Radio. He wasn't really doing what Stern was doing. He was doing very aggressive, political kind of radio. I mean, you could say that people like Rush Limbaugh owe something to him, even though he tended to be on the left. But yeah, like doing politics that way, that very aggressive, almost abrasive, offensive way. You could say is Alan Berg, but this idea of like going on and just really violating all sense of taste and decency, very often in a funny way. Very often his bits were hilarious. Howard Stern really invented that. And he has become virtually the opposite of what he was. Now, why is that? We'll get into that a little bit. But let's take a trip down memory lane. Now, you might think this is funny. You might think it's not funny. But you have to remember, Howard Stern is making jokes about the girls at Columbine High School at a time when you couldn't go listen to 100 podcasts that would make a sick joke like that. Nobody did shit like that before Howard Stern.
The only one, yeah.
All right.
This is Howard?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I lived like a mile and a half from the school, man. I have a couple friends that were there, and I talked to them yesterday.
What'd they say?
They said that it was just a bunch of chaos, shooting, and...
Boy, a bunch of good-looking girls go to that school. That guy was right. The guy who called in, he was a little too excited, but... There was really good-looking girls running out of there with their hands over their heads.
Yeah, I think the bomb teams are still working.
Did those kids try to have sex with any of the good-looking girls? They didn't even do that. I think the good-looking girls would be begging them to live, and they go, you don't have to beg, because you're going to be dead in a minute.
Yeah, don't cry.
Don't cry.
Yeah. See that one little blurb? It's like there was some girl, she was...
Now, that's edgy now. This is 1999. This is not long after that happened. Like Howard Stern, you really never knew what he was going to do. You could like it, you could not like it. But that, especially at that time, now, very sadly, we have so many mass shootings, they almost don't register. Columbine really drew a kind of attention to an event like that you probably didn't see again until Sandy Hook. Like that was really crossing a social contract kind of a line to make a joke like that at that time. This is one of the more infamous incidents in the history of the Howard Stern show. If you're an Xer like me, you remember Dana Plato from the show Different Strokes. You know that show, Keaton? Do you know the show?
Yeah.
You've heard of it? In case you didn't know, Dana Plato, 34, had just 1,000 in her bank account when she took her own life a day after being humiliated on the Howard Stern show on Mother's Day in 1999. Howard Stern is a horrible person, and I, for one, am glad his show is coming to an end. So, yeah, Dana Plato, you know, just obviously in a very bad place, like a lot of these child stars wind up. Went on the Howard Stern show, and they were bringing on callers who were just yelling at her, calling her a horrible person, a horrible mother, a drug addict, with Howard and his crew kind of egging them on. And she self-deleted the next day. So there's a very short clip of that.
Tired.
Just tired.
You're tired of the whole thing.
I'm tired of defending my character everywhere I go.
Did you ever consider suicide at one point?
Oh, hell no.
You never did. Never got that bad.
Got a beautiful boy, no.
Right, you would never do that.
Yeah, so, you know, you got to be a pretty heartless, sick bastard. I mean, I certainly don't support that. And then, of course, there was this. Donald Trump Jr. actually dug this up right before he interviewed Kamala. Now, this is in reference to Ted Danson was dating Whoopi Goldberg, and they actually went to a party with him in blackface as a joke. So Howard Stern, in a 1993 New Year's Eve telecast, recreated that, in which he repeatedly calls himself a smelly N-word in this. So that's the kind of show that Howard Stern did, only to point out how remarkable the transformation is. We did a segment on Ozzy, and watching Howard Stern turn into what he's turned into is very much for me like seeing the trajectory that Ozzy's gone on. When I was a kid, Ozzy was literally probably the rock star that freaked out the grown-ups the most. He was the one that would just be guaranteed to freak out your parents. And seeing him winding up being this like cuddly, non-threatening, Spinal Tap-esque adult Barbara Walters guest crying on the Barbara Walters couch, it's quite a remarkable transformation. Seeing him sainted by the mainstream the way he just was when he died. It's very much the same thing. Watching the Howard Stern you just saw, the Howard Stern you just heard, turn into this Democrat Party booster who basically does Oprah-esque foot rub celebrity interviews has been quite shocking. So here he is in 2020 talking about how he feels about Trump and his supporters.
In all of this is the people Trump despises most love him the most. Go look at Mar-a-Lago, see if there's any people that look like you. I'm talking to you in the audience. The Trump voter who, you know, idolizes the guy, he despises you. I don't hate Donald. Donald's doing his thing. I hate you for voting for him, for not having an intelligence, for not able to see what's going on with the coronavirus, not able to see what the Justice Department is doing. I hate you. I don't want you here.
Well, that's not good for business, especially when your brand was built on being, before they called it woke, they called it PC. He was the original anti-PC warrior. So presumably a lot of people in his audience were conservatives who hated the libs. For him to turn into a lib, that was pretty devastating for his numbers. And of course, he didn't endear himself to that portion of his audience during COVID.
Anyone unvaccinated would not be admitted to a hospital. At this point, they've been given plenty of opportunity to get the vaccine. They don't trust our government. They think that there's some conspiracy to turn them into a magnet or something like this. Now, if you don't get it, in my America, all hospitals would be closed to you. You're going to go home and die.
So, yeah, he really, to the outer extreme of liberal outrage with the deplorables who had vaccine hesitancy. And here he is, a little clip where he interviewed both Biden and Kamala Harris, who very, very famously would not really sit down for interviews. But Howard Stern is such a Democratic Party fluffer. They say, she can't fuck that up. He's going to just toss her softball. She gets in trouble. He'll rescue her. It'll be fine. So here's a little bit of how that went. His intrepid journalism with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Is the father of our country. That's something we all say. And I think your family is so...
Nobody says that. We say that about George Washington. Nobody says the president is the father of our country. Who says that?
Right.
Nobody says that.
President is the father of our country. That's something we all say. And I think your family is so extraordinary because of the way they've conducted themselves and how they are with you that I feel you have a lot to give.
What's that, ice cream? Someone says something about ice cream? Where's the ice cream? Someone bring me ice cream.
To the presidency. These are my feelings. I think you'd be a great president. I think you're compassionate. I think you've had all the life experience. I love your experience as a prosecutor. And I know even as a prosecutor, you got people out of jail who were falsely accused.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me says something.
Yeah, as I'm sure most of our viewers know, Kamala Harris literally fought to keep people from getting DNA tests that would exonerate them from getting those tests to get out of jail. So quite the opposite of what he's saying there. So Artie Lang was like a main member of his crew. Here he is talking about what a complete 180 he's done.
Ellen DeGeneres being like Richard Pryor because she dances. We used to hate her. The tapes are there. Pick up the fucking tapes. We not. This is an illusion. Sometimes I think I'm in a fucking dream world. Sometimes I think I stabbed myself and died, and I woke up in a world where Howard Stern likes Ellen DeGeneres is dancing. I woke up in a world where the Yankees suck, the Mets are good, and Howard Stern loves Ellen DeGeneres.
Keep going. Come on.
Yeah. And he has her on the show and kisses her ass. He said he looks forward to the dancing.
I guess I would say this: people are allowed to change, right?
Yeah.
So
nobody changes like this. This would be like Hitler running a temple.
So you don't think the changes are like legit?
Look, let me tell you something.
Okay.
And you know comedy. Nobody can make that much of a pivot on how they feel about Ellen DeGeneres' dancing. I mean, we used to say what it is. This is horrible.
Yeah.
Housewives wouldn't laugh at this.
Yeah.
She's clearly like, she's duping the world.
Yeah.
And now he says he looks forward to it.
Yeah, man. So Barstool Sports ran an ad on this. And the speculation is that it's the old tale of the castrating wife. He's into his second wife. It's not bad for a rich guy. Not holding it against him, but he made her the producer of the show after they got married and got rid of the old producer. So there's a little excerpt from the article. I listened to Stern a couple of years ago on Conan O'Brien's podcast, and he explained his conversion from comedian to celebrity sycophant in detail. How he just hated who he was, how he felt like his comedy was hurting people, and he didn't want that anymore. So he reached out to people like Rosie O'Donnell in particular and apologized to her for all the jokes at her expense. It all sounded like a secular sort of religious conversion, which Artie, and virtually anyone else in Howard's orbit will blame on his second wife, Beth Ostrowski Stern, whom he put in charge of his show almost as soon as they got married. She took over, got the big office the producer Gary Delabate had always been denied, and they were all told to answer to her, with the result being the pedestrian, monotonous radio it is today. Whether that's true, we have no way of knowing. Sounds reasonable because for people who continue to listen to his show, apparently that's around when it changed. And he very consciously changed the focus of the show to celebrity interviews. And they actually, as part of that article, there's a video of Howard Stern having a production meeting and saying, we want to shift the show more to celebrity interviews. So in some ways, he kind of did what Oprah did, but for different reasons. People forget this now. Oprah Winfrey is the mother of Jerry Springer. She was the first person to put lesbian nuns on the air. But she covered it with her original tagline for the Oprah Winfrey Show was Oprah because she cares. So whereas Springer made it very clear he was running a freak show, she pretended she was kind of running a therapy session, but it was obvious she was running a freak show, and that was the attraction of the show. After Jerry Springer got popular and people started looking at her saying, well, you kind of started this, she came back the next season with a completely different set, completely different setup, completely different show. And that's when she turned into the Oprah that just does nice interviews with celebrities. Howard Stern kind of did that. Obviously, it's a little different. His whole career was built around very consciously and intentionally violating all standards of taste and decency and freaking out straight society and getting successful doing it. That was a big part of the Howard Stern mystique, right? Look, this guy got rich telling the man to go fuck himself. He had a movie, he had a hit book at the peak of his career. This is around 97 at the peak of his career. Master of all media, he was calling himself for a while. That a guy got successful telling the straight world to go fuck themselves. He was this rebel outsider. Now, hey, maybe he did feel guilty. Maybe he felt bad about Dana Plato and other things. Maybe he did. I mean, people mature. Maybe he overcorrected out of guilt for things that he had done in the past. I mean, if I did shit like that, I'd be embarrassed to look back at it. Maybe he did, and maybe at the same time, he had a very Libby wife exerting influence over him, and he kind of overcorrected in the other direction. That would actually be my theory overall. I would say Libby wife, middle-aged guilt, boring, uninteresting, Kamala foot rub. Howard Stern comes out the other side. Now, in terms of everyone who went against Trump is failing now. Well, clearly, given South Park, that's not true. You can financially be very successful attacking Trump. The problem with Howard Stern, with Stephen Colbert, with Kimmel, they're all boring as hell. They're all hacks. They're all doing how many Cheeto jokes you're going to make? How many Orange Man jokes are you going to make? It's just not good. Now, where it is a reflection of the shift in the cultural moment and in the political moment. Why did they keep these guys on the air all these years losing tens of millions of dollars? Well, if you've ever seen Network, where they keep imploring Ned Beatty, who's the CEO of the network, to take Howard Beale off the air because the show's losing money now, what does Robert Duvall say? He wants Howard Beale on the air because he feels that he's, to paraphrase, imparting an important message. Yeah, man. They kept these people on the air because they liked the lib message. Also, remember, when the libs were in charge, there was an advantage to being a network that kept Colbert, Kimmel, and so on the air. Now that power in Washington has shifted, it's quite the opposite. They were willing to lose tens of millions of dollars on the Colbert Show as a business investment, as something that'll help you when you go to deal with the regulators. Firing Colbert, same motive, different administration. Firing him made things better. They were in the middle of trying to get a merger. So they got rid of him. Now, keeping these people out there to convey this message, even though personally a lot of these CEOs and such might actually like what they're saying, in the end, it's not worth it, because before, whereas it might have been a win-win, you like Orange Man bad jokes. I think a lot of these people probably lean more in that direction. And it makes it easier for you when you're dealing with Washington and regulators. Now it's going to make it harder for you to deal with Washington and regulators. Combine that with it's losing your network tens of millions of dollars, it's not worth it. So yes, they are being fired for political reasons. But if they were not losing them tens of millions of dollars, the example of South Park, at least so far, tells us they probably wouldn't get fired anyway.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Stern, you're also in this weird no man's land of media spaces where Sirius is kind of like between podcasting and terrestrial radio. You know, Stern used to get fined by the FCC all the time. They used to battle with the FCC all the time when he was on terrestrial radio. That's when it became this kind of big thing, kind of, when he moved to Sirius. Sirius never took off in the way that even Stern thought it would. It was always this kind of weird place to be. It limited his reach a lot, you know, especially since they were very protective of like copyright and all this stuff and syndication. And, you know, so it just made it a chore to even find him and listen to him. It kind of kept him from making the same sort of cultural impact that he made on terrestrial radio. And part of the reason
kind of disappeared from the culture.
Yeah, because he put himself behind a paywall. That's what happens when you do that, and when it becomes so difficult to access your content. Plus, the fact that he was always kind of going to war with the censors is what made the terrestrial radio more relevant, like the Columbine material and things like that. You know, to do that on a podcast is really nothing. I mean, those jokes were obviously in particularly poor taste, but people make jokes like that on a fairly regular basis on some of these comedy podcasts that you'll see. It can be pretty rough, you know, and it's not a controversy because it's an unregulated space. The fact that he was going up against the man constantly is what brought him to relevance in the first place. And then in terms of just like, the complete tonal and attitudinal shift in the later years, was obviously notable. It's not necessarily provable why or how that happened. But I noticed even when Stern was doing, you know, interviews with people, and even the stuff that I listened to, you know, that I would, you know, track down, because some of it ended up in, you know, on YouTube or other places. They would at least put clips of it out there or something. I noticed, you know, he would very often do something that I always thought was off-putting, which is he would talk shop with these very rich celebrities. Oh, how much they pay you for that movie, and that speaks to this whole thing where like, oh, well, they're not going to pay him what he wants. Why do you want $100 million? Like, if you love doing this, why are you demanding $100 million a year or whatever it is? You're worth in the neighborhood of $1 billion. Like, is it ever enough? Like, that to me was always, I felt like, doesn't this alienate working people to hear Howard Stern ask, you know, Bradley Cooper or whoever, how much you got paid for that movie, and, oh, why didn't you get more? Why didn't you ask for more? You know, I remember when Jerry Seinfeld was on one of the late night talk shows, and they asked him about money. They asked, I think Mark Cuban was on with Jerry Seinfeld, and they asked him about, you know, how much money he was worth. And, you know, he said at the time, you know, he had his finger on the pulse enough to say, you know what, there are working people watching the show. I don't want to talk about that. You know, it's just not in good taste to do that. Stern always did that. And he always seemed money hungry, even when he was on top of the world. Even when, you know, I mean, he's got more money than I'll ever know what to do with. He always seemed like someone who liked going there and liked talking about it. So maybe that was a factor too. It's just he was no longer worth it to them. You know, you never know. But yeah, obviously, you know,
clearly he's no longer worth it because he has no freaking audience.
Trajectory. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of it just has to do with that space becoming kind of obsolete. Just like with Colbert, you know, the medium is the message, right? I mean, late night TV, who cares about that anymore?
Sure.
Right? How relevant can you be?
But I think as long as they felt like it was good for them politically to keep it on the air, because they kept it on the air.
Right.
I mean, these companies are very mercenary. So why would you keep these money-losing shows on the air for all these years if it wasn't to gain some favor with the people who had power in Washington? Now those people don't have power, so why throw money down the toilet that way?
Exactly. Hunter could be the Rob from Office Space politician. 0 fucks. I haven't voted in 30 years, but fuck Hunter 2028, baby. Thanks, Killer Hitton. Yes. Les Wexner, Martha's Vineyard House, buys Obama's Martha's Vineyard House for $37 million. The man who funded Epstein's lifestyle. It's one big club, and you ain't in it.
Damn right.
Stoop sign. I back Crack Hunter for Senate. Hunting for that last vote like the crack sack. Thank you, Stoop sign. Appreciate that. Hamhawk says, I got to get to work on the Sober Hunter 28 t-shirts. A happy birthday, Russ. There you go.
Thank you.
It was Fantasy Island. Trump is O'Rourke and JD was tattooed. That's what it was. Yes.
Yeah,
it was Fantasy Island parody. Yes.
Why?
Yes.
What did you say?
No, I didn't say anything. I said he was,
Yeah.
mini me to the Dr. Evil, which I didn't mean that literally, but yes, it was a Fantasy Island parody. Kit's Corner, the newest King of the Hill episode on Hulu, ripped the stereotypical Andrew Tate culture boss in an episode. Happy birthday, Russ. Sorry for the wildfire smokes again. Yeah, I know. We did.
Is that what that is?
Smoke. Yeah, we got a lot of smoke here. I was feeling terrible today. Now I'm feeling better. I was telling Russ before the show. I was like, my wife has been telling me, like, moms groups and stuff, like, people are just feeling like randomly kind of sick around here, and it's probably because of the air quality. But yeah, I had a splitting headache today, just like totally dehydrated, congested. So she made me drink some electrolyte water out of her cup, and she said, as a price for doing it, I'm supposed to plug World Breastfeeding Week. It's the last day of World Breastfeeding Week, and so breastfeeding is a great way to give your baby natural immunity to all kinds of things. There's nothing more powerful for the immune system than breast milk. So,
is that what's in the cup?
If you got it, share it. Yeah, no, this is electrolyte water in the cup, which actually has made a difference. I feel much better than I did at the start of the show.
I mean, dude, literally, you're pitching breast milk and sipping out of a straw.
And sipping out of a straw. That's right. This is electrolyite water. It's actually pretty good, and I actually do feel better.
It kind of looks like you're doing an ad for breast milk and drinking breast milk to plug it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Well, I would have had a see-through cup if I would have done that. Ice, America's Bouncers. Thank you, Eric Huso. Appreciate that. EO Shush is basically what South Park did was say among big corporate media is the emperor is wearing no clothes. That's right. Damon Wolf says, yeah, all the best jobs require extensive recruitment campaigns, and those posters aren't nostalgic at all. Anyhow, happy birthday, Russ. Fellow much older Gen Xer. There you go.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Russ. Make anarcho-syndicalism great again. Mark Puglisi says, Russ, happy birthday, but also you should hope that America becomes capable of collective action pretty quick. We won't survive without it. Yeah, with a certain kind.
That's why I did a one-year lease, my friend.
That's right. EO Shush, I miss the real America-based Superman, not the new woke stop a genocide Superman. There you go. That woke anti-genocide Superman. Note RE, the last episode, making the trans issue central to the left would be like putting an Estonian in charge of Europe's Ukraine policy. Oh, right. They did. Ken G says, I find that Guardian reading progressives won't focus on class issues alone because they're afraid of being seen as bigots who don't stand for trans rights. They also supported Syria dirty war. Eric Rousseau says, hey, us with Asperger's autism has been known to be really smart compared with you neurotypicals. Yeah, that is true. That is true. They could be you could be very perceptive as well. Listen to Daryl Cooper's 17-hour podcast about how white women in blue jeans originates the early 20th century Austrian painting movements. I think Sydney Sweeney, because I'm noticing things. Good one. I am the owl. Appreciate that very much. All right.
Listen, man, there are definitely certain people, you're always going to get a lot of comments when you mention them. The cult of Daryl is like nothing I've seen, man. It's worse than the Alex Jones.
Oh, yeah.
The Alex Jones people have kind of written him off at this point.
Yeah.
I find. We really don't get any pushback on Alex Jones anymore.
Yeah, the Cooper, they don't let that go, for sure. All right, we will move right on along here. Before we do, actually, let me give you guys a word from where is that? What happened? No, I'm going to have to load that in. I was going to do an ad read, but I don't know where the hell it went. I had it. I don't know where it went. No, I'll look for it later. All right, so we will move right on along. in that case. All right, folks. So, there's been chatter about, Israelis and Zionists feeling uncomfortable on college campuses for the last couple of years. This was the latest report, if you want to call it that, from May of this year. Jewish Israeli Harvard students felt shunned, silenced after 2023 attacks in Israel. Report says they feel shunned by that. And so this was a recent talk given by Norm Finkelstein and Cornel West, and there's another woman on the panel. I forget who she is. This came out a few weeks ago, actually, but this part of it went viral just a couple of days ago, where Cornel West argues to Norm Finkelstein that we should be inclusive of child killers in order to not marginalize people. So by child killers, understand what we mean. So it's fairly common for Israelis to serve in the IDF, in this case, participate in war crimes, and then come to American universities to study after they've done their time in the IDF. And the debate here is over how those students should be received on campus. Should they be welcomed with open arms, or should they be shunned, as Norm Finkelstein says? Notice Norm Finkelstein says not say attacked, does not say assaulted, not advocating for violence against anybody, obviously, but just saying they should be shunned. They should be ostracized. They should not be welcome in social circles. And Cornell has a different take on that. So let's watch. We'll watch through this.
Know Brother West.
Oops, sorry.
And I know Brother West. He embraces everybody. When he says Brother Sharpton, I cringe. But he does it, even though Brother Sharpton has stabbed him many a time in the back. But I say they ought to be shunned. You ought not to be inclusive of child killers. I'm asking you, Cornell, do you feel that those students are obliged to be inclusive of child killers? I'm curious, because I know you're very inclusive. Maybe your tent stretches from here to the other side of the galaxy. Do you believe that they should be inclusive of child killers?
Yeah, that's a hell of a way of characterizing it, though, because you see, part of the problem here, brother, is that, the history of religions, which has been for the most part the history of barbarism in terms of institutional religions, they have specialized in shunning people. And once you begin to shun, then the next step is dehumanization, subjugation, and you're just redoing the same cycle that you yourself were resisting from the very beginning. On the other hand, and here this is where, now see, and he did not, we have such great respect and love for you, brother, but we don't agree on everything. Is that right, though, babe? We don't agree on everything. Because different strokes for different strokes, not in the superficial sense. Sly Stone just died. That ain't no joke. That was at the dignity of everyday people. You a different kind of brother than I am. I don't have to make you like me. You the kind of brother who have courage, intellect, unbelievable commitment to truth, and believes in shunning. I'm a different kind of brother. Shunning people who are connected with killing babies.
I don't believe in shunning as if it were a political principle. It's a visceral reaction.
Yes.
There's something revolting about being, as Harvard kept writing, to be inclusive of child killers. I find that just an utterly revolting concept.
Of course it's an utterly revolting concept. Obviously, you're not talking about Cornell talks about people who are connected to child killing. No, you're talking about people who did it. People who actually did it, right? You're not talking about members of a group that has some collective responsibility for brutality and misdeeds, like members of a religion. No, you're talking about an army. You're talking about a Gestapo who actually took part in horrific deeds. There's a big difference there. They go on.
But
isn't it?
But we just different kind of brothers.
You-
Man. We got
alright,
different kind of
fine.
temperaments, man.
I'm
I don't
gonna ask
believe
you-
in just.
look, Cornel,
Look at it this
I'm
way.
gonna ask
Look at
you-
it
no,
this
Cornel,
way.
would you corrupt?
If
Would
we
you?
shunned
1 second.
every American who supported the extermination of indigenous peoples, there's not a whole lot of folk left in the history.
Yeah, you're not talking about shunning people who supported it. You're talking about people who did it. You're talking about IDF soldiers. You're talking about people who committed it. You're not talking about people who supported it. I personally would go as far as to shun people who supported it, but that's not even what you're talking about here. You're talking about people who serve in the military and then come here to study. You know, and Israel does this to their own people. You know, Kim Iverson, when she was on our show way back, she made a good point. She says, you know, Israel likes to make the human shields argument when it comes to Palestinians. Well, they kind of make their own people human shields by mandating service in the IDF, right? Like they subject their own people to these treatments because service in the IDF is compulsory. Now, that's their problem, not ours. If an IDF soldier tries to enter my social circle, what am I going to do? I'm going to push them out of it. Of course, I'm not going to be friends with an IDF soldier. Like it's such a ridiculous point, and Norm kind of calls him out here. What does he call it? He says rhetorical something. I forget. He'll let us know.
Fine.
If we shun
the
majority of Americans who supported the enslavement of black people, the lynching of black people, Jim Crow and Jane Crow, who's left? Well, you got some Mormons, you got some Quakers and some Mennonites and so forth around. Then you got the secular Jews in Brooklyn who come in with this rich tradition and want to go to the back of the bus on the Jim Crow bus when all the black folk are there and the Goyim is in the front. That's a small group.
No, this is a rhetorical evasion.
No, it's not.
Yes,
I'm speaking directly to your question. I'm just not agreeing with you.
Would you cavort and carouse? Because these students are complaining. They don't invite us to their parties. That's what they say. They don't invite us to our parties. They don't want us in our groups. They don't want to associate with us.
That's microsocial activity.
Would you cavort?
We know that's not the issue. That's not the crucial issue. The question is, how do you stop the killing of Palestinian children and innocent folk, and how do you become organized and mobilized?
I mean, one way to do that would be to make an example of the people who do it.
Yes.
Right? Not by attacking them. You can't be violent towards people, but by shunning them, by saying, look, you're not welcome here. If you committed these crimes, you're not welcome here. That's how you might actually stop the killing of people, by sending a message that, hey, anybody who participates in this is going to be a pariah for the rest of their fucking lives. Like, that to me makes perfect sense.
Well, and it shows how even Cornell, whatever position he might have regarding the conflict, has absorbed the Israel war crimes carve-out narrative. Because I promise you, if you said to him, well, okay, what about shunning Khmer Rouge soldiers who had murdered entire villages full of people and tortured people to death? Well, no, you've got to make it clear that that's not acceptable in polite society. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd be very surprised if he applied that same standard to any other country's war criminals.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Have to bring power and pressure to bear. It's not whether they get invited to some party after somebody's Hillel meeting and so forth and so on. No, we're not going to spend time on that.
Would you cavort and carouse with a child killer? I'm curious. I don't think that's a trivial question.
No.
You wouldn't.
No.
You would shun them, correct?
I would do more than shun, brother. I'd probably cuss them out and lose my Holy Ghost and kick their behind in the name of Jesus. But the point is, that's not normative. That's not the only model that I want everybody to proceed. I got my own way of being in the world. I'm a jazz man, got my own voice. This is how I decide to live my life. I want to love my way through the darkness. I don't believe in shunning, even given the crimes that people commit. If you got a different view, that's cool. I'm with you. We in the same demonstrations. We go to jail together, and we have fascinating conversations on child killers and how do you respond to child killers. That's all.
I notice after losing the argument, you reverted to your typical jazz man bullshit cop-out. That's not going to work on me. Is that what he says next? I hope that's what he says next. That's where the video ends. But yeah, you kind of realized he lost, and he was like, well, I'm a jazz man, so I guess it's okay. Whatever.
I'm gonna have to start using that line. What do you mean I owe taxes?
Wrong.
I'm a jazz man.
Yeah, what do you mean I didn't file my taxes on time? I'm a jazz man.
You get out of anything that way.
Yeah, get out of anything. Whenever you fuck up at all, just say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I'm a jazz man. What can I say? Uses that, because he realized what the point he's making is ridiculous. And all it took was for Norm to say, hey, look, would you cavort with someone who had committed war crimes? Again, not people who've supported this. We're not even talking in this example of people who, like, support Israel. We're talking about people who literally did these deeds, who were literally complicit with their physical bodies in the commission of these acts. It's not even a question. So, yeah, the fact that he's trying to, make some holier than thou point is exactly what our friend Nick Cruz says it is. So he had a great take on this. As I knew he would. This is why the academic left annoys me. No, we shouldn't be inclusive to genocidal Zionist scum child killers. Dr. Cornel West is 100% wrong here. If you want to pal around with baby killers, that's on you, but don't lecture anyone about your ridiculous self-serving decision. The academic left wants us to be stripped of all emotion and intellectually masturbates to the idea of taking the moral high ground. Exactly. He was just, what did Norm call it? Rhetorical evasion, right? Hey, I think that is analogous in the same world as intellectual masturbation, right? And once that bubble was punctured, he had to basically say, well, I'm a jazz man. This is essentially a dead-end way of thinking and only empowers our oppressors. This is why Dr. West's generation of leftists failed to connect with the masses and reign in the ruling class. Exactly. Because you're putting yourself up on some sort of moral pedestal that even you refuse to stand on when questioned about it. The professional managerial class left constantly takes positions in order to protect their standing in their social circle, then justifies that position by working backwards from there. It's so dishonest and annoying. Dr. West doesn't cut off baby killers because he knows it will impact his appearances on CNN and his social standing. That's it. Yeah. Absolutely. And by social standing, you're also talking about, and Norm is an academic too, but Norm basically gave his career for this cause. I mean, Norm was canceled because of this. Cornel West chose to run for president to pay off some debt. It seems like not the same dynamic there. Cornel West is still an academic. You may want to dip your toe back into these campuses, right? And so you got to kind of keep that door open. I think that is a lot of what this is about. But, when pressed on it by Finkelstein, he obviously had no leg to stand on. It's an absurd question. The question is absurd. Look, people who support what's going on now are shunned by me if they ever talk to me again. Like, there are people, like, I haven't actually, lost friendships over this because I don't initiate conversation with people as a rule anymore.
You don't really have friends.
Yeah, I don't really. Well, I have friends, but not who I will go out of my way to prod in this way. But
like
there
your
are
wife,
definitely.
You like your children. That's
basically it.
And you're kind of lukewarm on me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There are people who I know based on their social media posts that if I ever hear from them again, if I'm ever approached by them again, for any kind of social interaction or endeavor when it comes to the arts, I know a lot of people from the theater and stuff. I will tell them, to go fuck themselves, and I'll tell them exactly why, because of this issue, right? There are people who I know who are totally apolitical in their presentation, who I know have taken the birthright trip and been brainwashed into that, but who keep their mouth shut about it. They don't talk about it. I'm not going to go out of my way to attack them as long as they don't bring that into the world. They keep that to themselves. But no, anybody who has vocalized their support for this is not welcome in my social circle. So I go further than, okay, you had to be active duty IDF. I won't even cavort with people who express support for this genocide, much less soldiers being disinvited from parties on college campuses. It's not even a question. It's not even an argument.
Yeah. Last I heard, people are free to decide who they want to associate with.
Right.
And this is something we have been warning about from day one. If you have been jumping up and down and very publicly supporting this, that is going to have consequences down the line socially and professionally.
Yep.
You're seeing it first with people who have actually served in the IDF. And they know it, and that's why they're freaking out. We, to be clear before I get into this, we do not support any kind of violence. There was just that case of the IDF soldier, I forget what state it was in, where they blew up their car. They wrote, fuck the IDF or something on the sidewalk outside the house. I think the guy got physically attacked. We do not support any kind of action like that. But it was inevitable that things like that were going to start to happen when people are seeing this army committing genocidal actions and celebrating them, putting on the lingerie of the Gazan women that they've driven from their homes, possibly murdered. Like, that's funny. You see Destiny making a joke about it, like it's really funny, telling them just not to take pictures.
Right, just don't do it on camera. Right,
just do it. People see this stuff. So what do you think it's going to be like when you go to live in a community and you tell them you went and fought in that war?
Right.
How do you think that's going to go? And it is going to extend to the people who supported it. The tide is turning. You even have cowardly Keir Starmer and Macron over there getting ready to recognize a Palestinian state. And whatever you might feel is the overall political effectiveness of that action, it tells you something about how the timbre of the conversation is changing, as we always knew it would. In the end, everyone is going to admit that this was wrong. There's the famous line, everyone's going to say they were always against this once that comes. Social media is forever, motherfucker. You're not going to be able to do that. The things you said about this are going to be out there. It is going to change. And they know it. That's why you got Chris Cuomo there yelling at AOC, trying to get her to denounce that action that was taken against that former IDF soldier, which she's evading. She won't answer him directly. But why is he screaming about that? Why are all the Zionists screaming about it? Because they see their future in it. They see their future, and they're becoming increasingly desperate to stop a momentum that their efforts are only increasing.
Right. Absolutely. And yeah, this was something. I mean, I remember Caitlin Johnston said that was one of the best tweets of that year. Say, hey, right after October 7th, she says, if you're an Israel supporter, be careful what you say now, because you're going to be in the majority opinion right now, and there's going to be no social consequence for it in the short term, but there will be social consequence for it in the long term. And obviously, I would only advocate that there be social consequence, never a violent act against somebody. But social consequence is totally appropriate. People have every right to decide who they're going to be friends with and who they're not. And if you're a war criminal, then yeah, you're not going to get invited to parties. Sorry, that's the thing. And look, you want to say, because I know like people who went to Vietnam came back and they claimed that they were, spit upon and called baby killers and all these things. And their argument would be, look, it was compulsory service. I had to go. It was a draft. In Israel, it's the same thing. Well, you know what? You could either be a conscientious objector or you take that up with your government. It's your government's fault for putting you in that spot. You know whose problem it isn't? People at Harvard who get to decide who their friends are and who their friends aren't. It's not their problem. It's not their problem. They didn't do it. You did. And your government did. Your government that you empowered through this great democratic process that you're so proud of over there, right? Any way you look at it, it's not incumbent upon people who have nothing to do with war crimes to welcome war criminals into their social circles.
Of course not.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's see here. Oops, what do we do? Did I lose? Did I cut out for a minute? No, I think I'm
I see you. No,
all
I
right,
see you.
Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Andy Gardner says the Gestapo no longer discriminating based on education. It's endearing. There you go. Yes. Brad Gilbert says South Park should redo the Simpsons did it with Hitler did it versions. For fuck's sake, snap the chumpsters out of their own wokeness before it's too late. Brent Yoendo, thanks for the $2. Happy birth, Russ. You are a cat. There you go.
you.
Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks for the $49.99. There you go. Let's have a cowbell from Mr. Fancy Pants. Thank you for that very much. Says, happy birthday, Russell. Have fun at Chuck E. Cheese. Try not to eat too much cake. It's loaded with sugar.
You know what I'm doing? I am returning to my ancestral homeland of
Sticky
Queens.
spare ribs, yeah.
And I am getting that Ralph Cramden-style Chinese food, man. That's how I think of it.
Yep.
Alice, get your coat. We're going for Chinese.
Going for Chinese. That's right. That's right. That is good stuff out there. Hey, you want to make Russell's birthday extra happy? You know what you could do? You could become a member by going to dodissidents.com/Patreon//Substack or /locals. So Jake has been working diligently to rework our website, and it is almost completely done. It looks really good. So we're going to launch that soon in conjunction with some more written content. So make sure that you are following our Substack there. You don't have to join as a paid member for that, but to support the project and to support these expansions, yes, obviously your membership is what enables us to do it. So dodissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals. Either link gets you access to all kinds of perks, including ad-free replays of every live stream the day after they air publicly. So if you miss a show and you don't want to watch it back with the ad replays, you can get it ad-free, just as if you're watching it live, emailed to you the following day after it airs. You also get call-in access to our weekly Q&As, bonus content when we do our post games and our film club nights, and your name up in lights here on the member scroll. So all that for just $5 a month. It helps tremendously keep the show afloat. So if for no other reason than to wish Russ a happy birthday, head on over to dodissidents.com/Patreon and sign up. We thank you very much for your support. Vito P says Stern's audience capture went south on him. Cancer sucks. You guys and a girl rock. Thank you, Vito. Hillary Hinton says Stern was never funny. Jackie's writing made him funny until he left, and then Artie carried the show till he left. That was 15 years ago. It's been unlistenable ever since. Artie Lang is fucking hilarious. I mean, that guy is fucking funny. Jackie, the joke man, I don't know. I didn't listen to the show close enough to really judge his talent. He was at a film festival that I was at in Jersey one time. They were doing like some tribute to him. And so I think I met him. I forget. But I remember seeing him there. I don't really know much about him beyond that. West, Brother Epstein needs to feel inclusive. There you go, Brother Epstein. Brother Cornell spewing brother foolish argument about brother genociders. Yes, West floods the market with love and devalues it. Good point. Good point. It kind of does devalue love when you give it out. Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of it that way, but you're right.
I mean, look, the whole way that he talks is such a hustle. Like, it's such obvious shtick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, fill in name of musical icon here.
Right.
Put in jazz reference there. Throw in a few Fannie Lou Hamer references.
Yes.
It's very cut and paste.
That's right. DD is the best platform and the most clever ranters. Happy birthday, Russ. Thanks, Bronstone.
Thank you.
Brother Epstein and Sister Ghislaine deserve our love. Also inclusivity, my brothers, like Brother King showed us in his march in Alabama. I'd make these IDF students do the Walk of Atonement. Shame, shame, G-O-T. Nocturnal Human says, Officer, I didn't do it. I'm a jazz man. Yeah, exactly. Oh, is there a red light there? Sorry, I'm a jazz man.
I'm a jazz man. I was improvising.
You know. I'd make these IDF students do the work of... Oh, sorry, got that one already. Still chuckling about that, how that time Russ had Keaton shouting "fuck off" from an iPad an inch from West's face. Oh yeah, next time you're such a fantastic moron. Yeah, oh, fuck off. I wasn't saying that at him. I was saying that at the guy who was giving him shit.
But it was like right over.
Said, oh, fuck off. Yeah, because I didn't realize my mic was on. I didn't realize they could hear me. I thought Russ had like headphones in. Yeah, I thought Russ had his headphones in. So I was like, oh, fuck off. Yes, that was funny.
The worst.
I'd make these IDF student walk. Oh, sorry, I got that one. Yeah, because Russ says quiet. Quiet. Cornell's proven himself the ultimate big tent dem sheepdog, just lost all respect. Even the young people in Occupy didn't embrace pedos. Inclusiveness without boundaries destroys the movement. All righty, let's move right on along here. Okay, this was a story that we meant to get to on Tuesday, but it didn't, so we're glad we could do it today.
Okay, so this is a story we try to draw attention to. It is, frankly, and this is something people who are in the Sudan will point out, or people who are advocating for it. Yeah, it doesn't get the attention it should. A lot of people feel it's because it's a black famine, or black people who are mostly being the victims of it. I do think that's part of it. I think it's also because we're not funding one side in this conflict. So as a nation, we don't feel as much responsibility directly for it.
Right, we're not throwing people out of the country for talking about it either.
Right. So it's not as personal for the United States, but it is terrible that this is getting ignored as much as it is. So here's a little video about what's happening in Sudan right now.
Space of 2 months, over 100,000, let me repeat, 100,000 children starved to death in Sudan over the space of 2 months. And it's not lost on me that we hear barely a peep. It's so hard to get updates on what's happening in Sudan from reliable sources, because African suffering, African starvation, African pain is just seen as the norm. 24 million people are suffering from food insecurity in Sudan. Women are being raped to the point where they're just unaliving themselves rather than be humiliated and attacked in the ways that they have been. Tens of thousands of people have been unalived by the RSF, and over 12 million people have been displaced more than once. I saw one lady saying, there is nothing left for us but death. Now imagine, like, this is children, this is babies, this is women, this is men, you know, with no means to survive and with no hope on the horizon. Al-Fasher alone has nearly 5 million people experiencing emergency levels of food insecurity. 5 million people. This includes...
Okay. So let me just expand this so I can read her name. That is Dr. Shola Mas Shugbamimu, if you want to look up her account. So this is Ryan Rusbiani. Do not forget Sudan. Over 500,000 babies have died of hunger since the war began 842 days ago. Again, I mean, this is horrible that this gets almost no attention.
Yeah,
not
such
in
a mass
mainstream
scam.
media, not in our space, really nowhere. The international aid agencies asking for donations have less than 10% of the funding they require to really meet the need. Sudan is being forcefully starved. In the city of Al-Fasher, which shelters over 1 million people, families are surviving on toxic animal feed just to stay alive. Al-Fasher has been under siege by the RSF since April 2024. Hospitals have been bombed, aid is being blocked, civilians are being targeted. This from One Path Network. Do not forget Sudan. Sudan is facing a catastrophic famine described by the UN as the world's worst humanitarian crisis in 2025. Nearly 30.4 million people, more than half the country, now depend on emergency aid, while 24.6 million are trapped in acute food insecurity. Among them, over 637,000 people are enduring famine conditions. IPC Phase 5 in some of the hardest hit regions, including Zamzam, Al Salam, and Abu Shuk, IDP camps in North Darfur, as well as the western Nuba Mountains. Children are bearing the brunt of this man-made disaster. 522,000 children have already died from hunger-related causes. Despite the scale of the tragedy, aid deliveries remain dangerously inadequate. The suffering in Sudan is unfolding largely out of sight. 12 million people are internally displaced, and over 4 million refugees have fled to neighboring countries where food aid is also running out. Entire communities in Darfur, Kordofan, and the Nuba Mountains are on the brink of starvation, surviving on foraged leaves and contaminated water. This crisis is not a distant tragedy. It is a daily reality of preventable death, the direct result of siege tactics and neglect. Do not forget Sudan. Every share, every donation, and every voice raised can push this silent catastrophe back into the world's conscience and pressure governments to deliver the food, medicine, and safe passage that millions of Sudanese need to survive. And that's why we do these segments. And I will point you to some aid organizations that are active there at the end of the segment. And yeah, there is an absolute horrific crisis of sexual abuse. This article from Human Rights Watch: fighters assault women and girls, hold sex slaves. There are reports of children as young as 1 being attacked by armed men. This kind of violence is used as a tactic of war, as it tragically has been in many places throughout history. We like to think we're beyond this, but we're not. And it is a war crime. So this is a report on what's going on in Sudan from Sky News.
This is a suffocated city, cut off from food and fuel for over a year. The volunteers keeping people alive are on the back of this cart. You'll die of hunger, he says, and no one will even care. This rare footage from inside Al-Fashir is a picture of paralysis. The city's been relentlessly targeted by the RSF, who tightened their siege after Sudan's army reclaimed the capital. The entire city is now a militarized zone, and no filming is allowed. Thousands are squeezed into these tents on the edges of Al-Fashir. The famine declared in displacement sites, attacked and ransacked by the RSF, may have spread to these rare safe zones where aid can't reach, and families are forced to eat animal feed to stay alive.
We are suffering so much from no food, no water. We are hungry. Our children are naked. We have nothing to eat but animal feed. There is no water. We have nothing.
Volunteers are doing what they can to stave off starvation, offering one small dish of starch to take the edge off. Humanitarian aid convoys have made it into North Darfur but can't come anywhere near the city without facing fire from RSF militiamen upholding their brutal siege.
Yeah, to highlight how impossible it is to bring aid, to bring food to El Fasher. There was another convoy, UN convoy, with 15 trucks that tried to reach El Fasher at the very beginning of June. It could not, and there were 5 people, 5 aid workers that were killed at this moment, and since then no more convoy has been able to reach El Fasher. In April we received several men injured with gunshots in MSF supported hospital in Tawila, and they were injured by rapid support forces and their allies because they were trying to bring food to Zamzam at the time.
So very similar. Obviously a very different situation with different underpinnings, but some of the same kinds of horrors you see out of Gaza, where aid workers are killed trying to deliver aid, where you have this suffering starving population that people want to help, but they're not able to get through because of the conflict. This is from Zay. The famine has reached level 5 in Sudan. It's catastrophic to say the least. Worst famine in 40 years worldwide, but it's barely making it into a single headline. I'm so fucking sick and tired of the world's selective empathy and activism. You'd give a damn if our skin wasn't black. Our color determines our humanity and whether we are worthy of saving, as if we don't all bleed red, as if our lives aren't just as precious, as if we aren't loved by our families. This level of dehumanizing is brain altering. And for anybody who's going to say that it has nothing to do with it, I want you to imagine if this were happening in any white European country. It just never would. It just never would.
Get
it
to
would
that.
never. It would never be permitted. What the woman said in the first video, African suffering is just assumed to be normal. It is. It is.
Right, of course.
Hey, man, even if you're an activist, you are a product of your culture. You have been conditioned, if you are from this culture, you have been conditioned from birth to think this is how things are in Africa.
Right.
So when it happens in Africa, you accept it in a way that you would be horrified if this happened in Italy, right? Who would let that happen in Italy? They'll let it happen in Africa. Adamola. As you remember Palestine, remember Sudan, remember Congo, another place we've reported on. We are all fighting the same oppressor. Nina Turner, free Sudan, free Congo, free Haiti, free Palestine, free all oppressed peoples, including those here in the United States. The struggle is intertwined. Yes, we're going out to do our documentary on Uhuru soon. One of the things I find so inspiring about them is they have maintained that vision of an international struggle in a way that a lot of the left in this country, at one time, that was very common rhetoric, particularly among black radicals. And that's kind of died on the vine, at least in the most visible portions of the activist spaces. And I think that is something we need to bring back, because it is all intertwined. So the UAE apparently is funding the RSF. So this was a video that The Economist did explaining why that might be.
The United Arab Emirates backing a genocidal militia. Satellite images and UN reports show the UAE is arming a paramilitary group, which is trying to take over Sudan by force. The country's civil war has displaced 12 million people and left 25 million facing acute hunger. The UAE rejects these accusations, but evidence of its role backing the rapid support forces is overwhelming. So why is it involved? One argument is that the UAE wants Sudan's gold. There are multiple gold mines in Sudan, including here, here, and here. And gold is important to the Emirates. The country has become a gold refining hub, and gold is now its most valuable non-hydrocarbon export. But here's the thing, the UAE already imports almost all of Sudan's gold. What's more, the Emirates has a $500 billion economy, so importing slightly more gold doesn't make much of a difference. Another argument is agriculture. Sudan has more land that could be used for farming than any other African country. That interests the UAE, which is highly dependent on imports. As a desert country, 90% of its food comes from abroad. But the UAE already controls tens of thousands of hectares of Sudanese farmland and imports tens of millions of dollars of its crops. Others suggest that the UAE is after geopolitical influence. Sudan has a large coastline on the Red Sea. That makes it a strategic location for trade and security. But there's another explanation, a more compelling one. The UAE seems motivated by ideology. Its president, Mohammed bin Zayed, is fiercely hostile to political Islam. In Sudan, Islamist officers wield power within the army. That seems to be why the UAE is backing a militia that's fighting against the army. It follows a pattern of the Emirates trying to carve out its own sphere of influence, distinct from regional rivals like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey. A few years ago, it supported a warlord who unsuccessfully tried to overthrow the government of Libya. It supports secessionists in Yemen. It also backs the leaders of Puntland and Somaliland, two breakaway republics in Somalia. And the UAE is skeptical of the Islamist-led government that has emerged in Syria. But nowhere has its foreign policy had more devastating consequences than in Sudan, where the government accused the UAE of complicity in genocide. The UAE's policy has managed to anger America, China, and Russia, no small feat in 2025. Even though the RSF has lost some ground, there are no signs that Emirati support for the militia is waning. That means its role fueling the world's worst humanitarian crisis looks likely to continue.
Okay, so you should remember that, at least on paper, we have friendly relations with the UAE. We're allied with the UAE. So you're meant to believe that we are horrified by Iran and the Iranian government. But the UAE is literally funding a genocide in Africa. And no, we're cool with them. Israel, yeah, they're committing a genocide. They're not even using a proxy. We're good with them. You know, we have that on the soundboard, the Mitchell and Webb thing. Are we the baddies? The more you dig into these things, the more you have to say, yes, we are the baddies. It is not our business if in Sudan they want to have an Islamist government. That is no business of ours. That's no business of the UAE. But in the end, if they want to spin it to you that there's some justification for this, that's what they're going to tell you. Well, you know, radical Islam is the government. You know, they have to. Okay. So what happened when they asked Madeleine Albright about 500,000 dead children in Iraq? Was it worth it? Yeah, I think it was. These people are psychotic. They're psychotic. And if you look at the average human being, they don't support this. Our leaders are psychopaths.
If I could just add one thing to that, because I think it's important to highlight what the guy said about it being ideological, which is a good point. You know, Misty Winston just had Brad Pierce on her show a couple weeks ago, who wrote this whole piece about, you know, the UAE really rising as a significant global power. And they're a very cash-rich country. And so we assume when a country in the Middle East is cash-rich, it's because of their oil. And yes, the UAE is oil-rich, which is a great source of their wealth. But it's not the only source of their wealth, okay? They attract a lot of real estate dollars, a lot of tourism dollars, a lot of financial services dollars, a lot of AI, things like that. What does that require? That requires an integration into the Western world. So just as Israel is an aircraft carrier, I think the UAE is trying to position themselves as another sort of Western aircraft carrier, right? And really develop economically a lot of systems that attract Western investment, which would, of course, incentivize them to crush Eastern ideologies, right? You know, it's not just the oil. It's the fact that a big source of their wealth is their integration into the Western world in all of these other sectors.
Right. You know, I've been studying ancient civilizations. It's kind of been my project the last few months. And you look at this, and part of the tragedy is these cultures created civilization. I mean, they really, I mean, Sudan, that's one of the oldest civilized areas in the world. And we have such a condescension towards these regions. We have such a delusion that the West invented civilization, and these people are the backward ones. These people were civilized thousands of years before the Europeans. The Europeans were beating each other with clubs and living in tents when they had grand cities and irrigation. And we've come back as really the inheritors of the civilization that they created in what used to be known as the Near East, what we usually call the Middle East in North Africa. And it's like we are the children of these civilizations, and we came back and just destroyed the parent.
Right.
And we frame them with just absolute disrespect and disdain. Like the inventors of civilization are uncivilized. We call them uncivilized. And
Right.
look at what we do to them. Look
Right.
at the inhumanity that we find an acceptable price to pay to achieve our geopolitical goals. But we're the civilized ones. So a few groups that are managing to get into Sudan and do good work. We featured them before. The International Rescue Committee is one that you can donate to. Of course, the great Doctors Without Borders, the woman at the end of the second video there is from Doctors Without Borders. They are active in Sudan, and this is a new group on the list. Now, I can't guarantee this because I didn't go through the charity finder with this. They look legit, particularly given the amounts that they're asking for. You're going to scam. You're going to go bigger than $5,000. But it looks like that's a real grassroots organization on the ground in Sudan, and they're dealing in the local economy. So it seems like that makes it a little easier for them to deliver the aid. Like if you just give them the money, they're going to buy things locally and distribute them. But look into it. Look into it. Displacement and Health Relief Network update. We were able to send the first $1,000 to the community kitchen in El Fashar. This is the result. Hundreds of meals were prepared and served to displaced families and children fleeing unimaginable violence. So they take their donations through PayPal. They do have a website. Like I said, it seems very grassroots. According to them, they're made up of students locally. It's basically a local outfit. So do check it out. And we do what we can, man. We try to raise visibility. I know a lot of people who are in our space watch our show. Maybe try to do a story on this when you get a chance. Because it is pretty disgraceful that this is like the forgotten genocide happening at the same exact time that the Gaza genocide is happening, and nobody's paying any attention to it.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's because we're not as intimately intertwined with the perpetrator as we are in the case of Israel, which we'll get to next. But it's still ultimately part of a very similar kind of project, I think. Yeah. Don McCarthy says, "Happy birthday, Russell. I would have bought you a basket of fruit, but ice has scared away all our fruit pickers, and now our fruit is rotting in our fields because Americans are lazy. Buy a Big Mac." Thanks, Don McCarthy. Eric Main says, "Happy birthday, Russ. If you notice a sharp crack in neck pain, head banging to 666, no worries. Bones increasingly fuse at your age. Remember, you're not old until you yell at Keaton's kids to get off your lawn." Thank you.
Or until I have a lawn.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Andy Gardner says, "Norm Finkelstein, excuse me, Mr. Westelli, Mr. Cornelli, you're such a fantastic moron." There you go, good one. Omar Barovic says, "Here's some money, don't ask for more. I'm a jazz man." Thank you. Daria, thanks for the $2. You're a beautiful, kind human being, Russell. Happy birthday. Yeah, it's very sweet.
Thank you.
Cornel West sounds compromised, says Camilo Chavez. Thanks for the $2. Empire We Are, thanks for the $10. In the 90s, I built F-15s, avionics, Israel I and Saudi S models. I did dog and pony shows for officers and S princes. They couldn't be on the hangar floor at the same time. Both camps pricks. French Laundry, thanks for the $10 super sticker. Appreciate that very much. Ken Minji, Cornell to his supporters. "Oh, brother, where art thou?" West is a deadbeat jazz man. Worst skill says, "Cornell, I'm a jazz man. Watch as I scat all over my reputation." Please do more segments on Cornell. Funny as hell. He doesn't get around much anymore. That was from OR Books. I think that's the same bookstore that did Anya's event. They do
was it OR Books? I guess they did it in the other orientation because they have like a stage towards the back.
They have a stage, yeah. It was on their channel. That went kind of viral, so good for them.
Yeah, it keeps sending their shit to my spam.
Oh yeah.
Like I would cover a lot of their stuff because they do have
they do a lot of
events
events
like that.
Yeah. I like that Chris Hedges teaches in prisons. How do you treat U.S. vets? They kill civilians and children, though the media hides that part. You can't change them if you don't talk to them. Yeah, but this is a direct genocidal campaign. I would argue is a difference there, right? Like, yes, individual soldiers commit atrocities. That is par for the course, unfortunately, in war. And like I said in the segment, a lot of Vietnam veterans did deal with that when they got back, and that was something that still gets talked about a lot to this day. Joining the Vietnam War was a horrible mistake. Obviously, perpetrating the war on Iraq was a horrible mistake. This is not even a war. That's the real thing. This is just fish in a barrel against an entrapped population that couldn't flee even if they wanted to. So I think it rises to a different level. But I do understand that point. I do understand that point. And look, to Cornell's point, at a certain point, you had a lot of people in this country who supported slavery, who supported the Holocaust of the American Indian. The question is, what about the people who actually did it? What about the people who actually pulled the trigger? Right?
If they're talking specifically about whether you want to invite them to your party, I don't even know what the question is.
What's the question?
What are you talking about?
Right.
You got to hang out with them?
Right.
Why?
You don't have to hang out. You have to include them in things. Right. First Amendment includes freedom of association. That's right.
And hey,
happy birthday, Russ.
Thank you. I saw somebody saying it in the chat, and they're right, man. I just went back and forth with a hardcore Zionist that I know. They're in a cult, man. They're in a cult.
Yeah.
It is exactly like talking to a Scientologist. It's exactly the same. Cult members have an answer to everything. It doesn't matter what you bring up. Well, what about all these records that L. Ron Hubbard lied about his military service? Yeah, those are his enemies.
Right.
Those are his enemies. Make that up. They made false files. It doesn't matter what you say to them. They have an answer to it. They're only going to come out of the cult when they decide they want to come out of the cult.
Right. Of course. Monkey Rotary says, would you be okay with the world shunning U.S. citizens for us facilitating most of the world's problems? My question is for Keaton. Well, you're singing my song, man. I don't know. Is that supposed to be a tough one? That's an easy one. Yes. Of course I'd be okay with that. That's their choice. I don't see, we are making ourselves a pariah on the world stage. It's part of why we speak out against it, just like part of why we as Jews feel a special responsibility to speak out about Gaza is because we are represented, whether we like it or not, by the people doing it. And I say that's part of it. I don't speak out about Gaza to redeem Judaism. That's not my motive, right? My motive is to advocate for the liberation of Palestine and for justice for those people. That's my main motivator. But what compels me, what makes me feel obligated to do it in the way that we do it is because, we're Americans. And in Russ and I's case, we're Jewish Americans. That means we have an extra responsibility. So, would I blame people? Yeah, if I go into another person's country, would I be surprised if the people there want nothing to do with me because I put in power a government that is still to this day insisting Israel has a right to do this? No, I wouldn't blame them at all. It's not something I'd hope for, but I wouldn't blame them. No, of course not. So got that one. Shunning is a First Amendment right. Got that one. Monkey Rotary. Happy birthday, Russ. Thanks, Monkey Rotary.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, we got one more segment. We're running long today because you guys have been so generous with these birthday chats. So thank you very much.
Thank you
for that. That's very kind of you guys. We do have one more segment on the day, and then we will get to the rest of these chats. Don't you worry. I will photograph that one in case it goes away. All right, perfect. So, folks, Medea Benjamin has an update because it's August. People are on vacation in August. Congress is on a break, which means Medea gets to take a break since a big part of her job is going to Capitol Hill and raising hell, fighting the good fight, holding politicians' feet to the fire. And so she has an update on where these politicians went on vacation because a lot of these Congress people said they were going home. And by home, they mean to Israel. Oops, sorry, there it is.
is in recess, so I'm packing my bags for a trip to Los Angeles to see family and to participate in protests. But where is Speaker of the House Mike Johnson? He's not in his district in Louisiana, a district that's so poor 38% of the population relies on Medicaid. No, Speaker Johnson is in, you guessed it, Israel. Let me tell you the names of the other members of Congress with him. Nathaniel Moran, Claudia Tenney, Michael McCall, Michael Cloud, all Republicans, all to provide cover for Netanyahu's regime. And guess who organized the trip? Well, it's called the U.S.-Israel Education Association, but it is simply a front group for AIPAC. You know, Johnson went to the Western Wall yesterday and he prayed, and he said that he prayed that America will always stand with Israel. And then they visited an illegal settlement in the occupied West Bank, a blatant endorsement of Israel's plan to annex the entire West Bank, which they call Judea and Samaria. They said nothing about the violent settlers who terrorize Palestinians every day, burning their homes, shooting farmers, even killing U.S. citizens. And oh, they're going to Gaza, but not to show their concern for the starving people, but to praise the despicable so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a group of callous mercenaries who, together with the Israeli soldiers, are murdering starving people every day as they risk their lives trying to get a little bit of food for their families.
Yeah, so that part of it we don't have reporting on. Perhaps that's happening now, but we'll bring you as up to date as we can here. Mike Johnson goes live from the wall. Mike Johnson, who literally shut down the House last week to block the release of the Epstein files, is now praying at the Western Wall in a yarmulke.
Mike Johnson, the 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives in America. We're here with a delegation of members of the House. We're so grateful to be in Israel, particularly on this day, recognizing the destruction of the two temples and 2 times in history. But it is such a moving time for us to be here at the Wailing Wall. We've offered our prayers. We put our notes into the wall as just traditional. And we're so moved by the hospitality of the people and the great love of Israel. Our prayer is that America will always stand with Israel, and that we will we pray for the preservation and the peace of Jerusalem. That's what Scripture tells us to do. It's a matter of faith for us and a commitment that we have. God bless you.
You know, understand as we go through this, understand that Israel's allies are one by one threatening to recognize a Palestinian state. That's how much Israel has tanked their reputation on the world stage. But our Speaker of the House goes to Israel, but he doesn't stop at Israel. No, he breaks new grounds, literally, by traveling into the illegal settlements in the West Bank. As you can see, there he is posing with a shovel and an American flag in the background with some Israeli settlers. House Speaker Mike Johnson visited the Ariel settlement in the occupied West Bank during a private trip on Monday, August 4th. He and his delegation planted a tree there. Ariel, like all West Bank settlements established after 1967, is considered illegal under international law. The United Nations, the International Court of Justice, and long-standing global consensus maintain that such settlements are a grave breach of the Fourth Geneva Convention. This tour was organized by a pro-Israel advocacy group and did not involve any official U.S. congressional delegation. So antiwar.com, our friend Dave DeCamp, has a write-up. House Speaker Mike Johnson visits illegal settlement in Israeli-occupied West Bank. House Speaker Mike Johnson traveled to the West Bank on Monday to visit a Jewish settlement considered illegal under international law, a strong show of support for the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territory. According to Ynet, the trip was organized by the Yesha Council Settler Lobby in coordination with the U.S. Israel Education Association, as Medea mentioned, a pro-Israeli advocacy group. The trip makes Johnson the first sitting House Speaker to visit the West Bank. During his visit to the Ariel settlement in the central West Bank, Johnson declared that the Jewish people have the right to the Palestinian territory, which he referred to as Judea and Samaria, using the biblical name. Quote, every corner of this land is important to us. It is an integral part of our faith, and therefore the significance for us is great. We stand entirely by your side, Johnson said, according to a statement from the settlement's municipal authority. Scripture teaches us that the mountains of Judea and Samaria were promised to the Jewish people, and they belong to them by right. But many people around the world, like all these international bodies that were cited in that drop site post, like international law, do not see it like this. They label it the occupied territories or the West Bank or any other name, Johnson added. During the visit, Yisrael Gantz, chair of the Yesha Council, asked the U.S. politicians for their support in advancing the goal, of Israeli annexation of the West Bank. Now, this is from Israeli public radio here. This is Yisrael Gantz talking to the radio host in an interview about Johnson's visit. So we'll listen to 2 minutes of this.
Now with Yisrael Gantz, who is the head of the Yesha Council. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we understand, the Speaker of the American Congress was visiting Ariel and Shiloh. Tell us about this. How important is this visit?
So, Mr. Johnson, the Speaker of House, came with 4 congressmen and also Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Mm-hmm. They came to Ariel. They met with all the heads, governor and mayors of Judah and Samaria. They heard about the challenges. We spoke about our rights in Judah and Samaria, the rights of the Israel people in Judah and Samaria, and we spoke about the future in Judah and Samaria. After a short conversation and some speeches, we drove to Shiloh. For us, as a speaker, is the highest ranking from the United States administration that ever came to Judah and Samaria. And we were very honored to have him in Shiloh. Shiloh is the first capital of the state of Israel. And for us, it's very meaningful that the Speaker of the United States of America came to the first capital to Israel, and he recognized the rights of the Jews in the holy place of Shiloh. So it was very important for us.
I understand he's a very religious person. Did you see that?
I see, because he's when we spoke about the Bible, he knows everything, and he knew most of the story. He and all the missions that arrived, and
he seems to believe all of the bullshit in the Bible. I mean, he knows everything. He believes all the stuff we tell the goyim about how the Messiah will come back. Just give us the land and the Messiah come back. You give us the land and then he come. Absolutely, he take you to heaven. Take you to heaven. You fuck your grandmother in heaven. Yeah, just give us the land. It'll be good.
Very connected. He's very connected. And what I felt that it's helping to see the truth through the right eyes, because people speak about conflict and whatever, but he understands the situation for years. He understands exactly where did we come from and why, and I think it will help him and President Trump, of course, that appointed him to help to solve the problem here. And I think and I hope that everyone in this area will enjoy that.
So they clearly had a great time together. There's no sign.
Look, we have in the Torah, it says, it's like a jar of spit. Once you spit on enough Christians, the jar full, the Messiah comes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. There's no sign that during that visit, Johnson raised the issue of 2 U.S. citizens, that's right, 2, who were murdered by Jewish settlers last month, or the recent settler violence against Taibeh, a West Bank village that's populated entirely by Christians. So yes, most of us heard of the first killing, which happened in mid-July. That's on the left-hand side of the screen. But very few of us heard of this second one. Didn't get as much news. Another U.S. citizen killed by Israeli settler attack in the West Bank. Neither of those matters were brought to the focus of Mr. Johnson's hosts. And so, in regards to his statements, because don't forget, this was not an official congressional delegation, right? So, because Mike Johnson said what Huckabee, who is the ambassador to Israel, has said, which is that he does not recognize the West Bank as the West Bank. He recognizes it as Judea and Samaria. A reporter wanted some clarification. Hey, does Mike Johnson speak for the government when he says that the occupied West Bank is the rightful property of the Jewish people and not the Palestinians. And so here's Tammy Bruce, the sort of Morlock of Trump's second term here, the Matthew Miller of Trump 2.0. Here's what he has to say about that.
In the West Bank, which he referred to as Judea and Samaria, and said that it rightfully belongs to the Jewish people. Is that official U.S. policy? And if it's not, what is U.S. policy towards the West Bank?
I've said this about other diplomats who've spoken their minds, including Ambassador Huckabee. Certainly, that's not, if there's a policy in that regard, you would hear it from me. So I think I can say that. I'm not going to speak for him or characterize his words in any certain ways, but clearly that is his opinion.
But it's not the opinion of the U.S. government?
Well, I'm not going to speak about opinion of the government, and if there's a policy regarding the status in any region of the world.
I mean, you're not going to speak about the opinion of the government. As a lot of people on Twitter mentioned, isn't it your job to disclose the opinion of the government? Isn't that what you're there to do?
Regarding the status in...
It's not the opinion of the U.S. government?
Well, I'm not going to speak about opinion of the government, and if there's a policy regarding the status in any region of the world, but certainly in the Middle East, I would wait to hear it from Secretary Rubio and President Trump. All right.
Well,
so why have a spokesperson?
Why have a spokesperson? And also, it's not like they have been shy about the way they approach this question of the West Bank. The ambassador, who was appointed by Donald Trump, does not recognize it as the West Bank, as I just said. We also know that Donald Trump lifted sanctions on these settlers who are now murdering not just Palestinians, but Americans, right? I mean, Trump lifted sanctions on these West Bank settlers. So that is an official act by the United States government who you appear to be speaking for, yet you will not say what their opinion is on Mike Johnson's statements. I think the reason she's not saying that is because she knows that they agree with what he's saying. So what the fuck is her job then? Yes, of course. What are you there to do if not speak on the position of the government? Yeah, this was a pretty common response to that stonewalling. And here, Tony Montana gets this photo. Here they are all crowding Netanyahu. Bro, all of Congress is there. What the fuck? Yeah, a lot of people spending their time in Israel. This is happening, like I said, as Britain, as France, as Canada. They either have, France has recognized a Palestinian state. Britain is saying they will. Canada is saying they will. We send our people to Israel on summer break. Now, this you can watch if you want. I wanted to include this because I think it was pretty well done. We're not going to watch this video. The video is pretty long, and in order to really get a handle on it, you'd have to watch most of it. But I'll read the summary from Dropsite here. House Speaker Mike Johnson's recent visit to the occupied West Bank wasn't just a political gesture. It was part of a years-long evangelical campaign to end times prophecy. Ryan Grimm reports Johnson has personally supported a movement to rebuild the Jewish Third Temple, which would require the destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which would likely trigger World War III. So you talk about apocalypse. Yes, that is an apocalyptic plan. In 2023, he invited a rabbi and Texas evangelical behind the shipment of 5 red heifers, those are cows, yes, to Israel, animals central to a biblical purification ritual meant to trigger the apocalypse. The heifers were flown to Israel as pets to bypass export laws. Land was quietly acquired near the Temple Mount for the sacrifice, and Johnson recently toured the site where the heifers are now being raised. So the plot thickens there. If you want to pursue that, you can watch that video. I'd encourage you to. It was actually pretty well done. Look, I don't know where their convictions and their earthly motivations begin. I don't know. I'm not particularly interested. Is Mike Huckabee a true believer? Probably. Seems like the kind of nut job who is. Is Mike Johnson? Maybe. Don't know enough about Mike Johnson. He kind of came onto the scene pretty suddenly in that speaker fight. What was it, 2 years back? The point is, this government is completely captured by Israel to the point where even as allies of Israel are threatening diplomatic punishments against them, we are courting not just Israelis, but illegal settlers in the West Bank on summer recess, planting trees there, affirming what Smotrich was so excited about after Trump won, which is what now we're not just going to get to genocide Gaza, we're going to get to annex the West Bank under Donald Trump. And yes, now with the help, if symbolic in nature, of Mike Johnson. But to Monkey Rotary's question, who asked the Rumble rants, do you blame the people of the world for stigmatizing Americans? Absolutely fucking not. Look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing. How are we not pariahs on the world stage? Why wouldn't we be? Why wouldn't we be? This is the conduct of a country that stands for freedom and democracy. Even the UK is threatening. The UK, who's putting people in jail for showing flags and wearing T-shirts that are anti-Israel, even they're threatening to recognize a Palestinian state, and we're sending these schmucks over there on summer recess. Of course we are the baddies, and of course we're going to be received that way.
Yeah, I'm just watching this, and it's very clear to me that this is going to precipitate a wave of genuine anti-Semitism that is going to be pretty horrible for the Jewish people who they're using as human shields, like all the Jewish people who don't support this, are all going to get caught in it, man. In the end, people are wise to it. They don't know how to stop it. I was just watching a video today of a woman in Arkansas talking about how Sarah Huckabee Sanders has committed Arkansas to buying $150 million in Israeli bonds.
Yeah, she was there too, by the way. She was part of this trip.
Yeah. They don't have proper roads there. They don't have proper infrastructure. People see it. You talk to these Zionists, as I have had the displeasure to do quite recently, they believe they're not stealing land because you can't steal land that belongs to you because they're indigenous.
Right.
They're the indigenous people, so how could you steal the land? It's the land for land without a people thing.
Yeah.
They think the Palestinians are a modern invention.
Mm-hmm.
That there was no such thing as a Palestinian until the Zionists came in and Arabs followed them in.
Right.
Because what they created, they believe all of these things. How else could you justify supporting Israel as a state? Right. You'd almost have to believe those things because you have to find your way clear to believing Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, most people around the world, pretty much every institution of international law, the UN, most of the world's governments are deeply anti-Semitic and involved in a conspiracy to smear Israel. You have to believe that. So how do you get your way clear to believe that? You have to build a mythology, man. That's why it's like a cult. You talk to these people, they have constructed such an ironclad barrier between themselves and any possibility of acknowledging that there's genocide, that there's starvation. It's just, it's the post-Holocaust thing taken to an absolutely deranged extreme. It's the legitimate feeling of victimhood and horror that people had coming out of the Holocaust, and now you're over 70 years removed from the initial event, where you are simply seeing every event that happens in the world through that lens. And particularly, at this point, it's pretty much all people who didn't experience that. So it's very easy to tell them, this is what I hear from Zionists. So why do you think the media is reporting this? What do you think the media looked like before the Holocaust? Right? Everything goes back to that. They've just taken that legitimate feeling of victimhood from the actual Holocaust, and they just apply it to everything. Everything is, we're being victimized just like the Holocaust. And it's such a fascinating case study I mean, a horrible case study, but a fascinating one in psychology and sociology. Ironically, very similar to Nazi Germany, where if you can convince people that they're victims being victimized by an external enemy, it's amazing what kind of horrors they'll be willing to commit if you can convince them that that's what the world is.
Well, sure. I mean, and Milo Yiannopoulos was on Candace Owens this week, and I watched some of that. He made a very good point. He says this is exactly why you don't let the victims of crimes determine the sentencing for the perpetrators, right? Because they will take it to a point where a neutral arbiter will say, no, that's too far, right? And that's what's happened here. He says you've given the victim a gun and told them do what you will to the perpetrator, which in this case they're not even the perpetrator.
They're not the perpetrator.
Nothing to do with the original crime at all. Yep, and that's another part of what makes it such a cult. All right. Hey, before we go, we got to read the rest of our super chats and Rumble rants. But I do got to tell you about our friend John Koa, who's a dissident sponsor. He's got a new album out called A to Z, and he's got a new single off that upcoming album called Just a Little Off the Rails. He's been advertising with us for a while now, and this is the latest from the upcoming album. So the core of these songs were the rhythm tracks from a collection of live acoustic performances between 2017 and 2020. John was going to release just the solo acoustic tracks, but he didn't feel like releasing music while witnessing the same state of affairs we discuss right here on the show. So he held off and continued recording, and now he's in the process of releasing these songs. Just a Little Off the Rails is the first single, and it's an autobiographical song featuring acoustic guitar, bass, vocals, and slide. Head over to his Spotify page, John Koah, Koah, to give it a listen. You can also find a link to all of his socials at dudissidents.com/Koah. Okay. All right. Let's take care of the rest of these chats and rants, and then we will call it a week. Do you think, race car, do you think that due to the increased speed of business transactions with the internet that we may never be in a recession again? Or will a recession be shorter than it was in the old days when orders went postal mail? It's a good question. I don't know. I think we could still make it to a recession, though. I have a feeling.
Recession. Labor's about to become obsolete.
Yeah, that too. Virtuoso says, Brother Russell, happy birthday. We got to be mesmerizing and organizing and inclusive to baby killers so that hate can be elusive. I tell you, I get a kick out of Cornel West sophistry. Thank you, Virtuoso. I do too from time to time. Christian Gyurko says, happy birthday, Russell. Love from Budapest. There you go.
Oh, thank you. That's a place I've thought about visiting.
Yeah, that might be fun.
I've heard very good things. Vinny went there a couple times.
Oh, yeah?
He said it was awesome.
Martin R, thanks for the $99.99 high roller from Martin. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Says, happy birthday, Russell. I watched that debate, and it was funny how quick she got up and left before the Q&A. Yeah, she cut out early. She said something ridiculous, too. She kind of took Cornel's side. The woman who was part of that panel with Finkelstein and Cornel. She took Cornel's side. I couldn't find the clip of that. That video was like 3.5 hours, so I didn't have time to seek it out. And really, the point was Cornel versus Norm. But yeah, she said something like probably even dumber than what Cornel said. Because, she didn't rap it in the jazz man lingo. Right. Brock Sampson, I think Epstein is alive. Israel protects its diddlers, and he's most likely in Israel or some other place like Greece enjoying life. Happy birthday, Russ. Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't put anything past him at this point. Matrix says, lick strange. Thank you, Matrix. Dea Close, thanks for the $10, says, happy birthday, Russell. Enjoyed meeting you at the Worker Strike Back conference in Seattle. There you go.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Artie Blarty Fart Blast, thanks for the $7.99. Apologies, slept in down under. Looking forward to replay. Happy birthday, Russ.
Thank you.
Edward Campbell says, reality is anti-Semitic and Zionists insist that it must be stamped out. Thanks, Ed Campbell.
Yeah.
Chris McElroy says, as each day passes, I'm happy to live in New Zealand, and it's wild out there. Yo, we might need some help. You think you can get us into New Zealand? I heard it's hard to...
Can you get us over there?
Yeah, can you get us over? Can you help us out? Can you be our sponsor or something if we need a sponsor to move to New Zealand? Because that would honestly be... I mean, New Zealand is perfect for me, obviously. Don't sheep outnumber people in New Zealand? I heard that.
That's
In New Zealand,
that's what I have heard.
there's more sheep than people. That's my kind of place.
Well, it's funny because back during the Cold War nuclear terror, the general understanding was that New Zealand would be the best place to be in a nuclear exchange.
Mhm.
Something about the wind currents and where it is, that was the place you wanted to be if things went nuclear.
Yeah, no, New Zealand seems like a wonderful place. Seems like a wonderful place. Vito P, imagine the money spent on bombs and weapons being applied to hunger. Cancer sucks. You guys are going to grow a rock. Thank you, Vito. Eric Rousseau says, we acted quickly for the South African white trash genocide. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. I was working a bit the other day. I was thinking of a bit because, we're talking about how the, Trump's poll numbers are sour, and you realize that, on the issues, when you take the personalities out of it, Americans are more progressive than you'd think. Even DEI, in multiple polls, DEI, it actually polls above 50%, right? It actually does. And in multiple polls, it does.
Well, that's why to keep the country this way, they have to promote the most repulsive fucking people in the country to be the face of progressive ideas.
Right. Exactly. And I was thinking, so, I'm against DEI because I think it puts a pretty face on capitalism that doesn't deserve it. I'm not against DEI because I'm afraid a black pilot's going to crash my
rainbow
plane.
Capitalism. Yeah.
Exactly. But I thought now we actually have a perfect job for unqualified black pilots. They can go pick up the Afrikaners when we bring them over to America.
There you go.
Yeah, that would be a great
It's a
thing.
win-win.
I would love that. I would love for them to go in and pick them up. That would be so great. That would be amazing. Get their reaction. U.S. aid cuts have severely impacted aid, making the famine far worse. But if it stops one trans play somewhere in the world, it's worth it. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw something about that in one of the articles about how, because they said they were going to do it strategically, but of course that's not what they did.
Right.
There was always with the Peace Corps where they were slipping in CIA agents, but it doesn't mean they weren't building water projects. So why don't you just stop sending the CIA agents and keep building the water projects? This is what we said from the beginning. What these guys are going to do is keep sending CIA agents and stop the water projects.
Right. Exactly. Rebel Seer says, happy birthday, Russell, making a donation to the San Francisco Fringe Festival in your name. Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow. Okay. I had a show in the San Francisco Fringe.
Maybe that's why. V. Nettlesbaum says, happy birthday, Russ. Have a drink on me. Cheers. Thank you. Medea Benjamin is a freaking warrior times 10. Yes, she is. Thank you, Ken Texican. Ardeen W says, happy birthday, Russ. Grab a medium bucket of popcorn at the next movie with $12. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. You know what, man? I do not eat popcorn at the movies, but the North Park Theater in Buffalo, they're famous for their popcorn. They have real butter. So I had it, and yeah, man. As good as advertised if you're ever in Buffalo.
All right. I love movie theater popcorn. Did Mike Johnson get the full settlers treatment with the traditional shower of loogie? No, I think they made an exception for him. Makes sense now. You guys won't be one of the 250,000 good Jews that go to heaven when Jesus comes back. So that's why you're pro-Palestine. Yeah, exactly.
Probably.
Or bitter. Happy birthday, Russ, says China Shill. Thanks, China Shill.
Thank you, man.
Anna Perna says the CIA destabilizes countries. Odds are that U.S. and the West are covertly a part of the Sudan conflict, a rabbit hole to consider. Well, we are allied with the UAE. I mean, yes.
It seems like there's more evidence for our involvement in Congo because a lot of materials that you need to build computers and cell phones come out of there.
Right. All right, folks. Hey, that's our show. So happy birthday to Mr. Dobular. And thanks, everybody, for being here. We appreciate you all. We went long today because you guys are so generous with these super chats. We wanted to make sure we get to them all. So thanks very, very much for your support. We will see you back here live on Sunday night. Shama Sawant will be joining us at the top of that show to talk about some recent actions and developments within her campaign. So we're looking forward to that as always. And that is when we will see you all again. So make sure you smash that like button on the way out. Smash that subscribe button on the way out on YouTube. Follow us on Rumble. And make sure you join our Substack, even if you just join it for free, because the website update's almost done, which means we're going to start getting back into the writing game pretty soon. DueDissidents.substack.com. So make sure you check that out. All right, we got a couple days off. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. Jesse, I see you in the chat. Thanks for everything you do, as always.
Thank you, Jesse.
Appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for spending the afternoon with us. Until we see you on Sunday, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.